Okay, I'd like to open today's Architectural Board of Review, April 18th, 2011, and start with general business. Anyone from the public would like to comment on an item that's not on the agenda can approach. Seeing no one, I'd bring that back to the board, and we'd start with item B, approval of the minutes of the ABR of April 4th, 2011. Can I have a motion to open those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
First by Dawn, second by Chris. So running through the minutes here, anything before item 1? Item 1. Item 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. And that's it. All those in favor of the minutes as reviewed say aye. Aye. Against, the motion carries then. And we go to the consent calendar of April 11th and April 18th. So I have a motion to open for the April 11th consent calendar.
So moved.
First by Gary, second by? Second by Chris.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. For consent calendar on April 11th, we had item A, 436 Corona Del Mar. Our review after final was approved as submitted. Item B, 1270 Coast Village Circle. Got project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item C, 1014 Coast Village Road. Got a project design approval and a final approval with comments. And item D, 401.5 Old Coast Highway. Got a final approval of architecture and landscaping with conditions. Consent was reviewed by Chris Gilliland and Keith Rivera.
Okay, great. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against, motion carries. So do I have a motion to open the April 18th consent agenda?
Well, actually, for April 18th, we didn't have a consent calendar today.
Oh, we didn't.
We didn't have any items, so we didn't have a consent calendar.
So nothing there. So that brings us to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Let's see, I have a couple of announcements. Clay Orell will be absent today, and Keith Rivera will be absent today.
Okay.
And the clerk's office received an appeal of the review after final at 336 North Milpas Street. That was an appeal by the neighbor, Mr. Frangos and Tony Fisher. So more to follow on that. We don't know when
Just
the hearing date
keep
will
us up
be
to
or-
date on hearing. Okay. Thanks, Tony. Okay. Brings us to any other items or not? Withdrawals? Requests? Okay. Item E, subcommittee reports. Shall we do the 101 subcommittee report? I guess I'll report on that. I attended a subcommittee report on Highway 101 on this Thursday last gone. I think all the main players were there. Chris was here, Paul was here, and I was there. Phil Suding, who actually has an appeal of the PC action, was there. And we went through further review of an in-progress by by Caltrans, and I think that's coming up today on item number 1. And that's about it, really. I mean, they just showed us in progress of what was hopefully a direction that they might be going in, or where they were looking to carry the project.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I guess it would also be worthy to note that there's a second appeal from the, I guess it's the trailer park or the RV park that's adjacent to the Salinas Street
Okay.
on-ramp.
Okay, it's good to know. Okay, I guess we'll hear some more about this when we open up item number 1. Okay, so that brings us to the end of general business and to the first item of the evening, Citywide US Highway 101, review after final. Okay.
It was traffic on the 101.
So okay, we'll just take a short adjournment till the applicant arrives. Say 10 minutes. The ABR for April 18th, and we are here at item number 1, Citywide US Highway 101, and I'd just like to briefly go over the minutes, and then we'll have the presentation. We have, let's see, we had a few speakers at the last one, public speakers, and our motion was continued to DRT and return to the full board prior to City Council hearing with the following comments. Study introducing additional trees and other landscape elements at the median strip. Confirm the number, sizes, and species of all proposed planting. The board appreciates the increased median strip and finds that the project moving in a positive direction. After reading this, I'd like if the planner can give us a run through of all that's happened in the project to date, where we are with the different appeals and where we are in the process, and maybe give us a report on the EIR that had to be provided with this review. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Dan Gullett, Associate Planner. Thanks, Mr. Chair. So this project requires a coastal development permit amendment. The coastal development permit is for the operational improvements project, which is known as the Milpas to Hot Springs project. The Planning Commission reviewed the coastal development permit amendment on March 17th and approved the project. The Planning Commission included a condition in their resolution related to the design review for the project, and I'll just read through that condition really quickly. It says, the project shall return to ABR for consideration of landscaping opportunities within the given physical constraints of the project as approved by the Planning Commission. ABR shall consider requiring more mature landscaping with a project as appropriate. So the Planning Commission approval was appealed by two parties, as you discussed earlier, Sunrise RV Park and Phil Suiting. And those appeals are expected to be heard by City Council next Tuesday on the 26th. Following the Planning Commission approval, Caltrans returned to ABR on the 4th. You just read the minutes. The plans that Caltrans brought on the 4th were based on a resurvey, and they actually included a wider right-of-way and wider landscaping than the Planning Commission reviewed and approved. On the 4th, as you said, ABR continued the review to the subcommittee, which convened last Thursday morning and gave direction to Caltrans. Caltrans has responses to some of the items that came up Thursday morning. And the main reason we're here today is to review in progress where Caltrans is at. So as I said on the 4th, if you have enough information, it would be appropriate for ABR to take action on the review after final today or continue as you see appropriate. It is important, though, that ABR communicate clearly to City Council your level of comfort for the project and what the board feels about where the project is proceeding to council. ABR member did ask about the environmental review for the project. There was EIR certified for the original project. Caltrans prepared an addendum for the coastal development permit amendment, the project that's under review now. Because there's a land use decision associated with the application, the findings for CEQA are made by the land use decision body, in this case the Planning Commission or the City Council. And the Planning Commission did make those findings. Next week's hearing is a de novo hearing, so the City Council would be considering the environmental review for the project at that time. So does the board have any questions for staff?
Not at this time, but if we bring that back to the, thanks very much. Bring it back to the applicants then. I'd appreciate that. I know that three of us here have been on the Thursday meeting, but if you can make your presentation that would follow up from what you had at the first ABR or the last ABR meeting to now, so that you could explain what has transpired and where you are, this would bring our full board up to where we are.
Okay.
So what you'd like to present.
There you go. Thank you. You just turn that on.
We get both of them on? Okay.
You're in stereo.
Okay, last time we were here, specifically we were here to discuss the addition of planting materials that we've added since the initial time that we met back in March, I believe. And that was summarizing the additional width in the median and the additional planting on the outside in front of the sound walls. And at that point, the design was pretty conceptual, and it mentioned example species and shows circles on plans, or actually it was more hatching on plans, and described areas and what sort of planting could take place in those areas. Since then, we were directed to go to the to the DRT, and present a plan with more specific plant species, sizes, and spacings, quantities, and try and work out some of the design details associated with this stretch of the change order, the project. And the drawings you see before you are a result of that, and I admit they're technical in nature and they're rough to a point. I've left on layers that normally you might turn off for a presentation, but I think they're valuable in seeing the different sort of elements that are at play in this portion of roadway, like sight distance triangles, drainage features, and other utilities, and of course the roadway configuration itself. As a result of the DRT, we were asked to study several different possibilities, and I can run through those and respond to the ones that I can respond to. And I think at this point it'd be good to use the PowerPoint presentation to kind of buttress what I'm saying. So this is the similar slide as you've seen before, talking about the different areas, the different types of planting we've considered. If you could forward to the next slide. This one, as you remember, shows how the median was originally planned, and the widths are shown in the middle on the left. This project is approximately 2,200 feet in length, and the original permitted project was mostly 10 feet in width. It narrowed at the very end to conform to Sycamore Creek. That would be what I would consider the north, or the northmost. Actually, it's west, but it's the northmost if you consider the freeway going north and south. So about 50% of the proposed median for this change order is between that 6 and 10 feet width, and the rest is between 6 and 4.7, with half of it being between 5 and 6 and the other half between 4.7 and 5. Since the DRT meeting, it was understood, and I had a number of plants that I suggested for this planting area, and they're roughly the configuration you'll see in the schematic, rising a few feet, a foot and a half or 2 feet above the guardrail. The suggestion at the DRT was, how about we try something, and it was called a green screen, and with essentially it's a wire trellis with vines growing on it. The goal there would be to get the plant material up high enough so that it would really be successful in reducing the scale of the roadway. So if we can have the next slide. This is our conceptual version of that, and it's rough, but essentially what we did was we took this is an elevation and a section, I guess, showing the guardrail, how the guardrail is configured, and then the posts. The post in this instance is built on the concept of chain link fence. And I did that because the chain link fence is something we have in our arsenal. It's accepted to use in a situation where it's this close to the guardrail. Guardrail has a certain amount of deflection that needs to happen associated with it. It performs its function by giving when it's hit by traffic. And so whatever we put out in the median is going to have to not interfere with that. So chain link fence complies with that, so we can do that. We can drill holes into the posts and run wires, taut wires, and have the vines grow on top of that. This section here shows about how that looks dimensionally in the narrowest sections. And we can have the next screen. This is an example of something that you could compare the look to, and I apologize, it's the best picture I could find, but you can see essentially that's a 6-foot chain link fence. This is taken from Google Street View, so the vehicle that's taking the picture is slightly elevated, so you're able to see over it, but this is at La Cumbre, just north of the exit. There's a stretch of wall just to the south of here that doesn't have any planting, a stretch of barrier with chain link fence on top, and there's no exposed soil in the ground, so there is not the opportunity to plant vines, but this section has been fully covered by vines, and I think it's very successful, and this is the sort of look that we can expect out in the median. Can we have the next slide, please? Oh, I'm sorry, go back. So we have the ability to consider different heights when we talk about this screen. As a default, we had done some internal discussion in the DRT about what the height of this should be, and I think 6 feet is a reasonable starting point to determine, or just to see if that's going to do an adequate job of providing that screen. This screen lasts for about, I think the distance is about, I took it, if we can pan back to the plans, this is about where the 6-foot segment of median barrier begins. And it seemed to make sense visually from my standpoint, if we're talking about the experience of the oncoming traffic from Salina Street, that maybe we extend it back just a little bit so that it's cohesive. At least it's more complete from the driver's experience entering the freeway. So it extends down northbound to just shy of the bridge. And then this plant material, which I'll describe in a minute, continues again, which sort of frames a beginning and an end for this screen. Okay, and can I have another? This slide, as you recall, just represents the green area is an additional area outside of the project limits that we had identified for enhancing the planting in that location. Thank you. And then the next slide. Okay. I wanted to respond to a comment about having some more detailed sections of what's happening through this roadway. So this is the section at the off-ramp at about 12 plus 00. So that's approximately here. That's the permitted condition right there, showing the northbound lanes, the 10-foot median, and that 24-foot planter. It says width varies. That's the triangular gore area that just increases as you go down the freeway. And right now it consists of ceanothus and baccharis, which is a low shrubby ground cover type of plant material, and that is due to the sight lines that occur in this area. I think I'm going to skip ahead since we're talking about this gore. I think it's appropriate to mention that we were asked to investigate any possibility of putting trees or tall plant material in this triangular gore section. And sometimes you'll see a situation like this where there's a concrete barrier or a metal beam guardrail. When that sort of condition exists, then that opens up the planter, the planting design person, to go ahead and add trees. Since we don't have a fixed object in this case, which guardrail and concrete barrier is, to introduce something like a tree would not be possible. And guardrail typically wouldn't be designed for this type of roadway because it is designed to the standard deceleration length and curve radius, so that accidents are not likely to happen. Some of the ramps that you've noticed in town may have some tall plant material inside of them, but they're usually very short, and generally in those instances it's where there has been an accident history, and the justification has been determined that, okay, this is a problem situation, and we need to address it by putting some sort of crash cushion in there. The same holds true for plant material. We were asked to investigate ways of getting the old oleanders, the tall, large, or any other sort of large screening plant material, and I I went back and checked with the design manuals and others in the office for guidance on this. And essentially, when our guidance talks about site distances, it's talking about this dimension right here. This is where the driver's decision point is, where he or she needs to determine whether or not it's safe to merge and what the condition of the traffic is. In this instance, essentially this entire triangle gets eaten up by that distance. This is an odd configuration. So to apply these distances, it ends up with just the whole area being within the site triangle distance. And it's just to create something that would block the vision in here wouldn't be a safe situation. So we're stuck with the Baccharis and the Ceanothus as we had in the approved plan. I need to take a quick break and drink water.
Oh, you.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking too much. We were also asked to investigate the potential of planting trees off-site. By off-site, I mean outside of the right-of-way. In this location, we have the tennis courts owned by the city of Santa Barbara. The current tree planted in this area is Tipuana, which is a low, broad canopy tree. And over here on this side, we have Sunrise RV Park. Excuse me. I contacted Santos Escobar, the City Parks and Recreation Department, on Friday to find out his opinion of switching these trees. And his response was a pretty emphatic no. He was not interested in, or had the maintenance forces available to him to adequately maintain these trees. And in his opinion, the planting space available was too small to accommodate such a large skyline tree. And you can see on the two ends of the sound wall, we have found enough room to add 3 eucalyptus trees on the front side of the sound wall. The deflection angle from the wall, or the floodgates, the setback from the floodgates.
Ricola.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Can you take over just a second?
Yeah. Sorry. The setback from the floodgates. We go into this area would kind of eliminates some of the planting opportunities along. It only allows for the vine planters and what's existing. Am I right in saying that, Dave?
And then we also spoke with Sunrise.
Yeah.
Okay. We also spoke with the Sunrise RV folks about the potential of adding trees on their side. And I think the overall the concept was of willingness, but the difficulty they face is that the stalls that they use for the RV parking are over here, and this portion behind the wall is used as ingress and egress. So I think there was some willingness to add planting, but I think the tree planting would take place further back, and it may not provide the benefit that we'd be looking for from the 101 corridor. If I can refer back to the sections again on the PowerPoint. So this is the approved plans. And Daniel, if we could just go forward one step. This is the after condition in the same spot. So if you can just go back and forth a few times, you can see the changes around the concrete channel where it's been removed and the floodgates are. And you'll see what happens to the outside planting. Before we had a 15-foot section with a large shrub and a small shrubby ground cover in front. Now there's a metal beam guardrail and a smaller shrub, but there are vines on the sound wall. And you'll see the the green screen in the median there. Okay, can we step forward one more? Here's a simulation. If you can just toggle back and forth between these two, this is the before and after. Now this green screen isn't quite showing up in this section. It's off in the distance. This photograph doesn't exactly line up with that section. So this is the same simulation that you've seen before. And if you can go to the next two sections will show the this is station 13 plus 35. This is the on-ramp. Oh, 13.13 plus 85, excuse me. So that shows the approved plan, and that the median is just starting to taper, so it's at 9.5. The outside planning is at 10. So this is where it drops down to 5 feet, almost its smallest spot. And the outside median is about 5 feet. Now the outside width varies also. That's a 5-foot section. It varies from 4 to about 7. This shows the 3 northbound lanes, and then this northbound on-ramp is merging. And then the next 2 slides will show a simulation of before and after in this area. So the median planting is quite a bit higher. Still maintains the long range vistas. I tried to show post and wire elements just to the minimal degree. They don't really show up even in this at this distance very much at all. I think the main concern or the main cautionary note we would have with that sort of a trellis screen is if the vine performs well, it should be a very nice design. If the vine doesn't perform that well, it's a lot of hardware out on the roadway, and it may have an odd look. There are things we can do. I think not using chain link mesh, toning down the elements with black color, vinyl coating, or some sort of epoxy color would help. I think one of the things that was worth noting is the absence of the palm trees in this one. If we go to the after condition, I think the design review team advised us that palms weren't really part of the program for areas south of Milpas, and that I think I was reluctantly going there myself, just thinking any vegetation is good vegetation. But I think in this case, the feeling was pretty strong that it's just the wrong place for a linear row of palm trees, which is all we were going to be able to provide. This is on the outside shoulder in front of the wall. The median our constraints, of course, are the deflection of the guardrail. It just doesn't get wide enough until you get so much further south that it wouldn't be possible to plant in the median. Palm trees, at least. And let's see if I have I've got some photographs of plant materials. We had kind of a brief discussion on plant materials and what sort of plants would do well in this site that's full of various constraints from soil texture to high groundwater to recycled water to pollutant levels and just the harsh environment of the freeway. This is an example of a suggestion that came up that I thought was definitely worth suggesting and proposing. This is Viburnum tinus. It would be tolerant of the conditions we have out there. It's a 6 to 12 foot tall shrub, white flowers in the springtime. This next shrub is a dwarf white oleander. This could be a shrub used on the outside. I've got it proposed in some locations on the outside. This is Rhaphilepis clara, 5 to 6 tall by about 5 to 6 wide. Again, on the outside shoulder. The median, and this is. I'll go ahead and go to the last one. Is a grevillea. This is a grevillea also proposed on the outside, behind the guardrail. Just about a 5 to 6 foot shrub, tall and wide. This is an example of an upright rosemary. This is Tuscan blue. Depending on whose description you read, this plant is about 3 to 4, potentially up to 6 feet tall, and about 2 to 3 to 4 feet wide. So this I would use in the narrowest spots. The last picture is just kind of an informational picture showing how the RV park is laid out, and how trees on the backside would be a tough thing for the owners of that business to deal with. So that concludes my presentation.
Okay. With that, I have 2 speaker slips. And the first is Beth Collins Burgard from the Sunrise RV Park. And she would be followed by Phil Suding. And if we can have her over at one of the microphones, it'd be just turn it on.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. Hello, I'm Beth Collins Burgard. Thank you so much for having me here. I represent the Sunrise RV Park. And as you know, we appealed the Planning Commission's approval and raised a number of CEQA concerns. It's my understanding that you all are not necessarily the folks to hear the CEQA concerns, so I won't spend your time with it. But I did want to raise a few things with you that are design related. First of all, we have a major concern that there hasn't been sufficient modeling. Even now, you saw this PowerPoint, and we see the views up and down the freeway, but we don't see the views just a little bit to the right. You know, that last PowerPoint where we showed. May I use the slides? These two. I would just like to turn it just a little bit to the right to show. I don't know if you all are aware, but the noise wall, the brand new noise wall, is proposed to be carved back 5.5 meters. That's 17.2 feet. So there's going to be a view straight into this mobile home park that is currently blocked. So I think that has some design and view ramifications on your front, and it certainly has some safety and noise and visual screening concerns on our front. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. So again, I would have liked that this modeling turned a little bit to the right. It would have shown a massive loss of a sound wall. Now, that is to maintain the sight lines that was mentioned before. That's what I'm told. And but nonetheless, it has some serious view and aesthetic impacts that haven't been analyzed from a CEQA standpoint, and I don't know if it's been considered by your board. Another piece that I'd like to bring up is the landscaping. And can I bother you to turn to the last slide, the second to last slide? I also have a map here. Okay, so you can see, and this is before the last sound wall was constructed. You can see the chain link fence along the freeway. The RV park is obviously on the right-hand side there. There's chain link all along in this picture. We've been encroached upon, right, as part of the last project. The large sound wall is much more in probably where the darker cement is, the darker asphalt. That's where the new sound wall is. So that driveway is significantly constrained. That first spot and those first 7 spots, really, thank you, whoever's running the pointer. Dan? Thank you, Dan. Those first 7 spots are the spots that are closest to the freeway, obviously, and that they're the largest spots that we have, and those are where we have often $1 million rigs. Those really, I couldn't believe it actually, that those really large rigs are $1 million rigs, and they're about 11 feet high, and they're ginormous. You've seen them, if that's a word, driving down the road, and they're very expensive and large and have huge turn radiuses. So we've raised CEQA concerns about traffic and circulation and safety But we also have a concern with views now. We're going to be peering out at you all on the driving by on the freeway, and while you drive by at the freeway, you're going to be peering back at these rigs. Also, the proposed landscaping, we're very concerned about trees that may drip unnecessarily or throw sap on these rigs. So if you can think about asking, and we have already asked Caltrans, because we've been trying to work something out with them, Caltrans and SBCAG, to go towards trees that don't drip and that are tall enough that they wouldn't injure these rigs as they're driving, that there would be sufficient clearance so that they don't get scraped or injured. Also, the proposed eucalyptus, we're concerned about that. I know that you all are aware of the fires that are in this area and the role that eucalyptus has had in helping fires hop the freeway in the past. So we're concerned about eucalyptus. If it can be oak or maple or other such trees that are more fire resistant, we would appreciate that. The other piece is, you were talking a bit about this, David, right? Yes. Okay, David, this median, or I guess, what's the center, what did you call it, a Gore Point? Gore area. Okay, I was calling it an island. So that center island, there's going to be a reconfiguration of these exit ramps. They're actually going to be moved back and made even more, an even more tight turn. We have a problem already of people careening off of the freeway and running into our park, probably at least about four times a year. So they careen through. It happened 2 weeks ago. Careen through, wreck Caltrans signs. This one didn't make it all the way into the park, but it is frequent. We've had some of our folks have their very expensive rigs run into and even destroyed. So we would love any protection you can provide, maybe guardrails in a V shape along that exit, so that it can deflect people back into lanes and not allow them to jump the island and then ram into the park. And we're afraid that the realignment of the lanes, making them even tighter and creating an even straighter direct shot into the park, is going to be a problem. And I don't know if you can tell on this drawing. I have a drawing that we were provided by Caltrans that shows the switch in the lanes. Do you want to maybe address that, David? Or I'm not misstating that, right?
No, that's right. I'm Dave.
Yeah.
I can't really speak to.
Pardon me.
You know what, we should probably just continue
Oh,
with
okay.
the public comment,
That's fine.
don't you
Yeah.
think?
Okay.
Because you're supposed to be 2 minutes.
Oh, and I've already way shot up.
over.
Talk about shooting
Because
off the
we're
freeway.
behind.
Okay. All right. So then the last point would be one-to-one mitigation. There's a loss of 1,900 feet of landscape, or loss of 2,300, I believe, square feet of, or linear feet of landscaping, a proposed replacement of 1,900, and we suggest it's a one-to-one mitigation instead of that. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, that's followed by Phil Suding.
I'll try and make up time for you. I'm pleased that we are seeing some of the things that we are seeing. However, I'm displeased that we are still not seeing some of the things that I think are important, and that's the width of the median. I want to remind the ABR that the median width was approved at 10 feet. We're still less than half of that distance. We're not even 5 feet wide. Would like to know what the height of the green screen was. Perhaps I missed it, but if somebody could ask that question when you get onto your questions. I also wasn't clear on what the status of the Tipuana-Tipu or any other tree behind the sound wall within the city property, what that status was. With respect to the RV park trees, I would love it if Caltrans and Sunriders Village would continue working with each other to get some trees behind that sound wall. I know it's a tight area, but I think there might be a solution there, a beneficial solution. Also, the Gore area, how accident prone is that area? It seems to me that it would be quite accident prone. Maybe it's not accident prone now, but with a new configuration, less accident prone, possibly more. I think we need to investigate that a little bit more, because I would like to see a guardrail there and a tree or larger shrubs. I know it is a sightline issue with the larger shrubs, but a tree strategically placed would only interrupt a sightline for a fraction of a second. Also want to remind the ABR that that until substantial landscape starts to grow up, particularly in this bore area here, we have almost 6 lanes of asphalt or more. We have the shoulders, we have 3 lanes, then we have the exit ramp, and then we have another shoulder. It's a wide expanse of asphalt, and we're not really getting a whole lot of landscape for that. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay. With that, I'll bring it back to the board, and we can go into questions. And Gary, are you ready? You want to start?
Sure, I'll start. I wasn't clear on it on the direction. I thought we asked about some trees or some large shrubs in the center median, and I don't recall getting a response on that.
Basically, we were limited to palm trees to be in the median because we can't go beyond the physical, the vertical restraints of the barrier. And the advice of the DRT was that palm trees weren't really the solution we were looking for in this area. So we were.
Now, can I ask this question? In this area right here, I thought I saw a elevation where you had some palm trees in it. Is that correct?
No.
Was that in the other area? I thought I saw an elevation.
You want to flip back?
That you had some palm trees in the center median.
Oh, that was the probably the section up by State.
Well, let's take a look at it. Right there, yeah. And that is, what area is that at?
That's the area shown in green between Garden and State.
Maybe the off-site mitigation for.
It's not. Yeah, we're not calling it mitigation.
I guess we're not calling
Okay,
it. Sorry.
so that's between Garden and State right there. Those are the king palm trees that are there.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have palm trees on that side, and then directly on the side of Milpas Street. And then we cross over the new Milpas Street Bridge, and palm trees are no longer allowed in an area that we need some upright. And then there was, in this area closest to the roundabout, closest to Coast Village Road off-ramp, there were no trees in that area?
Yes, that's correct. And for the same reasons I've stated before.
And the reason that you're stating is that the barriers aren't strong enough to do it?
Once there's exactly. They function by collapsing, so we can't interfere with that. So they need a 4-foot deflection. That's from the face. So anytime the barrier gets around 9 feet, we start to get a little bit of room in there, and the palm tree is a possibility. Or it's 10 feet, you have a couple feet in there, a palm tree is a possibility also.
Okay. Then a question was brought up by the public about mitigation. And it was basically, they said there's something like 2,100 feet. I don't know exactly what that. What is the mitigation that you're having right now? What is the ratio of plants that you're removing as to oppose replacing?
I do not have that. I do not have that figure.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to ballpark it right now because I think overall linear feet might be very comparable, but it's the width, and that's where that's the catch point. So I don't have that information.
The green screen, you mentioned that the height was not really set in stone. You said it may be 6 feet. What is the maximum height that you can go on a green screen like that?
What I'm trying to do is make this work with what we have existing in our arsenal as far as approved facilities. I would say 8 feet would probably be about the max.
And the vine that you chose on there, the trumpet vine, that would not be allowed to go past the barriers. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the 6 feet height that you were talking about included the height of the railing, the height of the railing.
Yes.
So we're really looking at planting that's just above the railing. So if you're looking at a 6 feet, we're looking at about a 3 foot section of plant. Is that correct?
The plant that's visible above the guardrail? Yeah, the guardrail is 32 inches tall, so about 2.5, little 2 feet 8.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Paul?
Curiosity question. The median that's here, whatever the width has become, what's the grade difference between the two, or how will that, or does that affect the way the planting happens? Is there going to be northbound is going to be 18 inches lower than the southbound, or something like that, and will that affect how the planting goes in?
Normally that would. In this condition, it's very level, so it's pretty much a straight, straight cross
There's no
section.
appreciable grade difference between either side. It should be pretty flat.
And then just to clarify something from one of the very first meetings, when the sound walls were placed, especially by the trailer park, was there any land acquisition that happened?
My understanding is there was a construction easement purchased.
Okay.
So I think the sound wall that you see now is built on the right-of-way line where the blue wall was originally. The blue wooden sound wall was originally.
Okay. Those are all my questions. That's all my questions.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Don?
Yeah, I'd like to know, it's kind of a question for staff, maybe for Dan, is who in DRT or who is it in the planning department that makes the decision of whether or not palm trees are appropriate south of a certain spot on the freeway?
The design guidelines actually speak to what plantings are appropriate where, and I can read the applicable guideline. It says, south of Milpa Street, landscaping shall not be arranged in a manner that creates a linear effect. For example, palms planted in formal straight rows tend to accentuate the corridor-like effect of the highway. Instead, landscaping should be placed in a manner that achieves an informal forested look that de-emphasizes the corridor-like appearance of the highway. North of Milpa Street, a more formal landscaping approach may be used.
Okay. And that's not a suggestion, that's an ordinance. It's a guideline.
It's a guideline.
It's a guideline. Okay. And question for the applicant, what was Caltrans' definition of high accident rate potential, and why they didn't feel that they needed the stronger guardrail at that off-ramp?
The off-ramp, as it's currently configured right now, which would be the old alignment, does not have a guardrail along the edge of it, and I would have to go back to traffic safety and talk to someone about what the accident history is there. All I know is that my guidance from my supervisor and above him was that where a guardrail was not currently in place, that to do so would introduce an additional fixed object, which would be a greater traffic hazard than nothing there at all. So that's kind of what I was working with. But that would be something that we would have to go back and certainly once the new ramps were constructed, I'm sure they would look at the accident history. And in the future, if it becomes which the stopping distance of the new ramp is greater than what the old ramp would be, the deceleration length. So we feel that this ramp, as in the new configuration, would be safer than the old ramp is, even with the decreased radius for the curves coming onto Salinas Street. But that's something that, if it's identified as a problem area, it could be targeted for a safety improvement in there.
Okay. There was a question, I believe, that you had that you didn't get answered at the time. Is there one question that you had that I thought I'd give you a chance to ask that question now?
Sure.
But you have to just come up really quick to ask it.
I believe the question was the alignment of the ramps. I don't know if it's shown on this drawing as well as the drawing that I'd already seen with the change in the alignment, and that it is actually going to be a sharper turn. So it was related to the safety comment.
Beth,
I can answer that.
I had an overlay of the existing ramp in one of the maps I showed you, but unfortunately the ones I brought today don't have that overlay. But yeah,
You
go
can
ahead,
point
Dave.
here.
I was just going to use this as an example. This is the new roadway, but the plant material is from the previous job. So what you can basically see is if you just follow the blue, that's where the old ramp used to be. The new ramp is actually underneath this blue, so it's moved over from there to there. However, the length has grown also.
And you can kind of see how the deacceleration length of the new ramp has increased substantially, and then the radius of the curvature coming onto Salinas Street, how sharp the curve will be, it's somewhat sharper than before, but there is a longer distance to slow down.
How much longer? Approximately.
I can't think of what the old one was. The new one meets the minimum requirements, and that's pretty much all the space that we have for it.
And then I just had one other question that I think Phil wanted to know the status of the tipu trees.
I spoke with Parks, and they felt that tree was too large for that area, and they were not willing to take on the additional maintenance that would be required of them to have such a large tree in the parking lot setting. So he was not. He said he did not. I mentioned eucalyptus and Monterey cypress because those are the skyline trees that are part of the design palette now. He was not interested in either one of those species.
So the city maintains all of this, not Caltrans?
Behind the wall, the city maintains all of it.
Oh, the tipus were suggested behind the wall.
In fact, they are approved for behind the wall, yeah.
They're already approved for
They're
behind
already
the wall.
approved. Can we go to
the tipu trees?
The tipu trees.
But the city doesn't have any interest in maintaining them, even though they're already approved?
They don't have maintenance. The idea was, let's switch those to skyline trees. The suggestion was, maybe we'll get more oomph to change that from a canopy tree to a tall, upright skyline tree.
And that's what they didn't want to maintain?
And that's what they didn't want to maintain.
Does that answer your question? That's it.
Chris?
Okay, a couple questions. I was wondering if you could, David, review the view angles again. I didn't quite understand why we couldn't get larger planting in here. Is that what these are showing, the red?
Those show the ramp sightline distance. They don't address this.
Okay.
And this is a planting guidance as opposed to an engineering guidance, although Aaron probably has some formula that he uses as well. But when I'm looking at distance of what's safe to plant, the measurement is taken from this area here where the two pavements meet and taken back. And when I lay these lines out, one ends up about there and the other one ends up just about there. So this becomes the sight line.
So you're saying that somebody getting onto the 101 from Salinas has to look all the way over here?
See what's happening.
Yeah, the idea is you can identify your merge point, and anything that would be substantial enough to block that view would be not. And even with that, like we said, the problem with putting anything substantial in there, like trees, would be that it becomes a fixed object and we don't have a clear.
I'm just thinking of the next exit over where you're coming up from Montecito and you don't see until you get right there either. So I guess that's what it is. But okay, next question. So the EIR was done for the approved plan, right? And they came up with less than significant impact with mitigation, right? And so, question for Dan, they are going to re-examine this new proposal? Yes or no?
They did re-examine the proposal that went to Planning Commission. Arguably, it has there's more planting provided in how it's evolved since Planning Commission. So the EIR covers the current project.
So they're maintaining the less than significant impact
with mitigation, right?
Okay. We talked about green screen height. Is there still additional off-site planting proposed with this north? Okay, just want to make sure that didn't get thrown out. And then I guess we also didn't have a percentage of landscape lost. It'd be nice to have those numbers. Well, I think I'll save everything else for comments.
Thanks, Chris. I have some questions here. In your discussion with the parks, city parks here, you mentioned the two species of trees that you put out as being alternates for these, and they weren't interested in those. Did the city at all recommend anything that they might not mind having, or they just didn't go there at all?
No, he was pretty specific in being happy with these trees and not wanting anything that's very large. His main comment to me was consider the site and what I have got going on back here. I don't want anything very large that's going to be an excess.
And how large do these grow to? Do they get over that sound wall right now, or they don't?
I would say yes, they will.
And
they will grow
by how much do you think?
I think the section does a pretty reasonable job. That's probably a 35-foot spread, 30 to 35-foot spread, and the trees are up against the wall, maybe 5 feet away from the wall. Now there's a unique situation in being right next to a 12-foot wall.
Yeah.
So it probably won't extend. The scaffold branches they'll have to grow up and over. So
I see.
I think probably 5 to 10 feet overhang would not be unrealistic at all. And I think those will get close to forming almost a large mass. The canopies will touch in the back.
Okay. The image that you showed us at La Cumbre that had the trumpet vine on the chain link fence.
Yes.
That's a chain link fence that is up against the wall, or it's just standing on itself in the open, and there's a driveway on both sides? Or,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's between the Calle Real and the freeway.
And how often is that pruned? Is that pruned regularly, or is that what we're seeing there hasn't been pruned for a while?
Probably has not been pruned for a while.
Okay. I guess one last question. In this section here, and I know that one of the key issues here is we're fighting with, it's that width of the median being able to accept significant planting. And we have these three different areas. And is it that we're absolutely sure that there is just no more inches that can be squeezed out of this portion that is under 6 feet?
Yes, absolutely. You mean additional width if possible?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's my questions for now. So now I bring it back to the board for comments. And Gary?
Thank you. I'm going to focus my comments on the median. The guidelines that we have say that we're supposed to create a forested area. We shouldn't use palm trees because it creates a tunnel effect or a channeling effect. And I would say that creating a hedge of vines that has a specific height of 3 feet and runs straight down several thousand feet creates more of a linear focus than a row of trees. So the ideology that we can't have trees in there because of this, and then say we're going to have a hedge because we want to get rid of that, it just doesn't hold any water with me. And it needs breakup. It needs something to break it up. And whether it's a specific set of rows of palm trees, I can agree that wouldn't be the best bet. But if we had groupings or something like that in this area, I think that would help break it up. The other thing with the trumpet vine, although I like the idea of the trumpet vine, having one symmetrical color of red trumpet vine running down the whole area isn't something that appeals to me either. I would say the species would have to vary, and we would get some different coloration, and maybe even different types of vines that would add different color or happen to pop out with flowers at different times of the year. So things aren't always looking the same. The formula that I see proposed here, not being a landscaper, just doesn't seem, as general public to me, just doesn't seem to be that aesthetically pleasing. The area of the before the park, if there is in fact scenarios where cars are breaking this barrier and running into that park, there's a safety issue. Those safety issues need to be weighed out with the line of sight issues. There are plenty of intersections right here in Santa Barbara freeway off-ramps. I believe El Sueño has some areas where that is very similar to this, that you can't really have a great line of sight down there. And I think that this really needs to be greened up, and a possibility of a tree, again, maybe some height trees or a grouping of trees is going to help. So as the landscaping plan is proposed today, I'm not really that pleased with it, and I would like to see another generation of plants.
Thanks, Gary. Paul? Yeah.
We're going to go in order.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to say we've pushed this project as far as we could, and it's amazing how well you have responded to every time we kick you. And I mean that metaphorically, of course. We've really put this project through the ringer in wanting things, and you have given us what you can, and you've told us we can't in a couple of areas, and we'll still keep on pushing a little bit. But I see what you have accomplished, and I'm all right with it. A couple points I want to make is one of them is the eucalyptus trees that were added, and it was commented by the trailer RV park people. A couple of added eucalyptus trees are exactly to create some character, some change of enhancement, different changes of verticality. So to us, from the design review board, wanting to see some neat stuff happening, we like seeing those trees. We asked for some more trees, even though it might have an effect on the adjacent parcel. I don't think 3 eucalyptus trees are going to be that detrimental. For Caltrans, if you think moving a couple of these trees and changing them to something like we would ask for, more verticality, I think we have enough pressure at our end to tell the Parks and Rec, you can afford to maintain 3 more eucalyptus trees for one reason or another. But we can take care of that at a later date. I do have some concerns with the modified EAR. I don't think that was legitimately done correctly from the way I think it should have been done, because the modified EAR should have said that it was going down to reduced width of 3.7 feet or whatever it was, 3.8 feet from 10 feet or 6 feet, some numbers, and then that reduction should have also triggered some additional, what I would say, mitigation measures. And you can't say that the mitigation measures that we were doing in the beginning of the project consider or count for what we're now further reducing. So to say that you're going to be enhancing the landscaping further north of the project, I consider that a mitigation for this reduced lane or median width. And it's just something that we're going to get landscaping elsewhere to compensate for what we're losing here. The island or the gorge, whatever we call this, if there's ever going to be a chance that you're going to be, or the opportunity that you're going to do safety improvements, if you're going to do safety improvements in the form of guardrails and eventually concrete solid walls, we want to see that. We want to see some trees planted in the island, because from our perspective as a board, we look at mistakes and we say we don't want to have that happen again. And the mistake is where La Cumbre and the 101 merge, or when the on-ramp right there, and you can see where the concrete wall is, and you can see, and that has happened over time. I'm sure when it was first built, it was just a nice landscaped area, and then it became a guardrail, and then the guardrail became a concrete rail, and so we're looking at that going, we don't want to have that happen here, so we want to have some confidence that if you are going to do some safety improvements later down the road because of there's accidents, we need to review the character of the landscaping that happens there, because it's important to our community. And the last point is the sound wall. My disclaimer for the action the board is taking, we are not really studying the reduction of the sound walls that are happening here. I heard the numbers that the RV park mentioned, and I looked at something here, and it says 4.25 meters, which is like 12 or 13 feet, and she was saying 17 feet. So I don't know what the number is. So my disclaimer is I don't know the impacts. We didn't really study the impacts in this zone. It'd be nice if this does go to the city council. Not that it's nice it goes to the city council, but if this goes to the city council, if you had a photo sim showing the before and after of this region so you can put this issue to sleep, because it could be a concern, because right now we are now used to seeing the sound wall at a certain length, certain height, and has the little scoop out of it. And now you show us another one with the wall 17 feet back. We go, oh man, we need to see that, because we at this board haven't studied that. We've been focusing on the fact that we had a 10-foot median and it now went down to 3 point whatever feet. Now it's 4.7 feet or something. So that needs to be further addressed by the decision maker.
Thanks, Paul. Dawn?
I'll keep it really brief. I just think that you haven't quite reached the end of a pursuit in a few different areas. One would be the trees in the median. I think that should be revisited, if at all possible. And I think the safety issue and the trees at the triangle should also be looked at one more time, and also the maybe slim chance, but still not quite resolved opportunity for additional trees behind the wall. In a few areas, I just feel like the answers that I'm getting, I'm just not feeling that they're the end-all answers. They're kind of we kind of looked into this and we kind of got this answer. But I just think that we could get a little bit more. But I'm not opposed to the green screen either. I think that was a creative option. But, yeah.
Thanks, Dawn. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've been through a lot of iterations of this, and you guys, have responded well, and used some of the ideas that we came up with as well. So we applaud you for that. So what we're looking at is here the box has been defined, and now we're sort of inside the box and trying to rearrange things and maximize our biomass in our landscape as much as we can. So what I think. I think we're getting closer. I don't think we're there. But I think what we should do is, and I think you're aware of this too, David, that some of the plant material that's chosen, you haven't really nailed it down. We need to talk about spacing, exact plant material, species, quantities, and that sort of thing. So I would, if this is going to City Council next, either before or after that, I think we need to get together some of the landscape architects in town and really scrutinize the planting plan itself. And I think, you have a specialization for probably the Central Coast, but I think if we have local people working with you to really nail down this planting plan, I think we can get to the point where we've maximized the planting opportunities as much as possible. So I'm going to propose that, as a general comment, and I'll see how the board feels about that as well. We want to make sure we don't overplant and we don't underplant, and that we've chosen the right species for the right, right plant, right place. Also, in terms, especially with the green screen, I think there should be a stipulation, if this does go through, that the city council or ourselves or you for your own for Caltrans would enforce a strict maintenance regimen. Like if these vines do die out, then we need to come up with an alternative. So I would hope that City Council would, include that in their decision in terms of what the maintenance will be for this long term. The green screen height, you mentioned 6 to 8 feet as potential, and so I guess we'd like to know what the exact would be. And then the visual that you showed had horizontal wire. Was that also with chain link?
No.
Go back. Okay, so it's just the wire. Okay. Let's see here. And then the off-site planting is good. We'd like, looking forward to the improvements that'll be made north of Milpas. That's, I think, a big help here. Would like to know what the percentage of landscape is that, and what the change is from 1990 to the approved to what we're looking at now. I think that's going to be an important feature. We know what's happening with the median, and but I don't think we're getting a real good sense of what has happened with the shoulders. And another thing that I'm noticing with the planting plan as is shown, and I think this is why it would be important to have landscape architects on board that are local, is it looks very busy to me. Like we have 5 of this plant, then we have 5 of this plant, and then we have 5 of this plant, and that's on the, the off-ramp and the on-ramp, and to me that would be very busy. So I think it would probably be a better bet to choose 1 or 2 or maybe 3 species and draw those out more, so it's not so broken up and so busy. Okay, I guess that's about it, really. I mean, I think everybody here would like the idea of the 3rd lane, and we don't want to shut this down if we're going to get the same proposal in 5 years. So I think, we can find a way to, again, maximize the planning opportunities here, and I think sort of a joint task force with local landscape architects could be a good way to do that in terms of determining exactly which species and quantities and sizing. And I think that's it.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'd first like to just take off to where Chris was. I'd start with the fact that, I think that the whole idea of having a 3rd lane, if you can get it and make everything flow really well, is really a great amenity to have. And I think that we should keep going along that line to pursue it, to make it work. Having said that, I think the part where I have the most difficulty is that we have reached this point where on the previous design we reached a level that we saw needed to have an absolute minimum amount of landscaping amenity to make this work for the city of Santa Barbara, and that's where the point of the previous design took place. And so I also have, because of this change now that we've made this, it seemed so simplistic, and I have to say that I have a problem with the modified EIR because of it seems to me that it's almost like there were no impact at all in making this change, and I just cannot see going from what was considered to be a minimum for us to have, and then for us to lose so much of it, and then have a statement that there is no impact. I just have a difficulty going there. So, and then the part that we have the issue with here, which is a lot of it is based around the median. I come back to that point at which we brought up at one of these subcommittee meetings, is that I see again your sketch up there on the wall, and it shows the planting that is totally going over the barriers and everything. And as I say, you drive up and down the 101 where you have these metal barriers, and when they maintain these barriers, they maintain it 6-8 inches back behind the post of the barrier. So you take that away from your image that you gave, and really that's the area that the plant has to survive in. So I think that because of that, we're trying to squeeze nature into this tiny little area, and out of it becomes things that become boxed or green walls or green screens or whatever you may have, and Gary alluded to it, you get this continuous green screen. I think it's an innovative idea, and I think we have to go there because of what we have left. I do think that the width that we have it does not work. I think an absolute minimum of 6 feet is absolutely, you just cannot get smaller than that and expect nature to be able to thrive in that area under the conditions that you give it. So I have difficulty with that. Bearing in mind the way that they maintain these. We talked about the different plantings that could survive, and Gary made a point that this continuous line of one color is maybe not the best thing. And I was thinking that while we have to allow water to move through there, and we talked about the wet feet and plants not being able to survive, there is the possibility that where specific plants are planted, it could have possibly a raised bed, that between the raised beds you can still allow water to flow through. So I think that's an option to keep planting the feet of plants dry in not a continuous area then, but it's intermediate so that water can flow through these areas that don't have that raised ideal. And it's these kind of things that I'd like to see considered, because if we had these intermediate plants, that would give an uncontinuous length of green color, is what the one of the thoughts are coming in that line, talking about. The I think it's I mean, all of this is really my comments. Built all of these comments around a feeling that we come out of Montecito, which is a heavily vegetated area that we've squeezed the highway into. We're widening the highway in a heavily mature vegetated area. And then we come out of that area and we hit the Santa Barbara entry. And I just find that we come out of that area and we hit tiny little median islands and a sound wall, for quite a distance before we start to go over the Milpas ramp and then get down into that area. And when you go over the ramp and you start to descend into that area, you really look down on, the big 3 or 4 lanes and merging asphalt. I just think that our whole entry to Santa Barbara has been heavily compromised already. And this really has given it, just another blow. So, I mean, I think we can get there. I don't feel that this is this can't work situation. I think we can get there. I think we have to look at innovative ideas to make this median work. I'd like to see the landscape portion of this be really looked at in a beautification way of coming into Santa Barbara, and how does this whole thing fit together. I have to say, in a way, I am really thankful for all the efforts that you guys have put into, because you have come back time and again when we ask you to do this stuff. But it really comes from an engineering point, and then what's left over, and this is what we can plant in what's left. And what I am really concerned about is making Santa Barbara beautiful when you enter Santa Barbara, and not have that lost, at least under what would be considered part of my watch then. At least do all that I can to make sure that that's maintained. And so I just have a feeling that this is not the point as yet, from what we're seeing. And I'd like to see more efforts, based on some of those comments that I made there. So I would be open to Chris's suggestion where this becomes more of a landscaping component, where we really look at what the landscaping is doing to this entry and how does it read fully as a beautification process as we come in, and maybe a little less as an engineering task. Not that it can be separated completely, but.
Mr. Chair, I have one additional comment, and if you're finished.
Yep, I am.
Okay.
I've said a lot, maybe too much, but.
I keep going back to the Gore area here, and I think of how many examples there are of even El Sueño, where you're getting on, you don't have the opportunity to look over there. You're focusing on what the turn is going to be. So if this was all, bolstered with large shrubs, I think that would go a long way to green up this zone here. I mean, I can see bringing back the big oleanders into this area. And, like I said, I'm thinking of if you were coming from below, if Salinas was depressed and you're coming up to this, you wouldn't have that opportunity that you're talking about. And the exit off of Hot Springs, you're merging on, and you don't see it until you've gotten up to that level. So I don't know who would be able to give permission to do that, but I would like, hopefully, for you to look into bringing larger shrubs into that Gore area, if at all possible. One more thing. I guess a quick question. Have you, as far as the green screen, I'm wondering how you determined what the length of it would be. It looks like these shrubs could be brought back a little bit, possibly.
They could.
We talked about whenever it was 6 feet, but okay. I see. Okay.
But no, there's definitely flexibility with that sort of
Okay, great. Thank you.
And just before we move on, and we'll probably have a motion shortly, is that did the EIR at all address that loss of that portion of wall? I think someone asked about that. And the fact that the reduction of the sound wall and the impacts to the neighbors and etc.
The addendum prepared by Caltrans looked at the visual changes of the project and found that there wouldn't be any additional significant impact. So it did look at the changes to the sound wall, and that's something that your board will have to review and approve ultimately. But we haven't seen elevations yet of what that would look like or visual sims.
Okay.
Is it appropriate for me to make a comment now, or?
Yeah. Go ahead, because
the EIR and the visual analysis generally does not take in the view to and from private residents.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the changing character that the driving public perceives. So that would be the one answer to the sound wall simulation, unless you're talking about how it pertains to the driver driving by. In which case, it would be
it's taken from the point of view of the use of the highway as opposed to
and other public streets. So sometimes we'll do them, like say in this case, potentially from Salinas. If there was some sort of, especially if the freeway was creating some sort of obstacle to an ocean view or a scenic vista or some other highly regarded view.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Paul.
I don't know if everyone will support this motion, but I'd like to make a motion basically laying out some comments and then asking, it would be an in-progress motion and having them come back to the board. And the first part is that the ABR is disappointed that when the original freeway widening project was envisioned, that the width that was created between the fixed barriers of the sound wall and the right-of-way of the railroads did not take into account a 6-foot median. And given that as a constraint, ABR is reviewing the landscaping and is trying to make the landscaping as lush as possible. ABR would like the City Council to encourage or give direction to the Parks and Recreation that it would be within their ability for ABR to suggest some additional skyline trees on the tennis court property to enhance the freeway experience. ABR appreciates the northbound mitigation being proposed as a result of the loss of landscaping at the median. Item C is ABR is still struggling with the Salinas Island/Gore area, and that in the future, if safety improvements are to occur at this location, that landscape improvements would be included in those improvements. And if possible, if Caltrans can bring photo examples of other such islands to the City Council meeting so that they can see what ABR is struggling with. In particular, if they could bring an aerial shot or a ground shot of the landscape island at La Cumbra and the 101 freeway, as well as at the El Sueño and the 101 freeway, and any other images to support the reason why there isn't any landscaping, because ABR would like to see some mature landscaping in the island. The fourth or fifth item, whatever it is, would like to have Caltrans bring some photo documentation, simulations of the changes in the sound wall, since City Council now is going to be approving the EIR based upon the appeal made by the Planning Commission, that the City Council should see the before and after images of the reduction of wall by the RV park. And the last item, ABR encourages Caltrans to meet with an ad hoc committee of landscape architects after the City Council meeting and before the next ABR meeting to discuss planting styles and varieties.
Thanks, Paul. Can I get a second on that? Anybody comfortable or would like to add to it?
I'll second that. And under discussion, I guess I'm sort of trying to address the busy factor of all these plants, and I guess that would sort of be within that ad hoc committee. So I won't do that, but let me just see if there's anything missing there. Get the committee. Caltrans, or the applicant, to define the final proposed height of the green screen for the next meeting, which we don't have an exact height right now. And then also to include the percentage of landscape change from 1990 through the approved plan and into the proposed changes.
Mr. Chair, on the discussion.
Under discussion, Dawn?
I didn't hear anything in the motion about the median.
Great.
Can I jump in?
Under discussion, Gary?
Under discussion, I think I'd like to add, if it's okay with the maker, that that Caltrans is to look into, although the ABR understands the guidelines of the use of palm trees in that area, some of the board members feel that this is not applicable due to the reduced size of the median and the linearity of the area that is going to be proposed anyways. And there are board members that feel that trees, palm trees, would be a good use of breaking up the roadway, and Caltrans is to return with some substantial tree groupings in the center median.
Can I just state that I
Let's
think...
discuss this, yeah.
Well, I just think that wording is not necessarily how I feel. The way I presented it to the applicant was more in terms of confirming that staff and planning really felt that heavily about it. I'm not saying that it's an inappropriate suggestion by their part, but I don't think that the green screen is any less lineal than the palm trees at this point. So I'm wondering, I'm just kind of asking them to justify why they feel that way, why staff feels that way. Go ahead.
I have a question. In this area that we're talking about, this 2,200 square linear feet, were there any trees before when we had a 10-foot median and planting in that zone? There were no trees. So we had bushes, except the bushes got crunched in a vise. That's all that happened between what was approved for median landscaping and what we're looking at.
So that in and of itself creates a lineal effect, like intrinsically. It creates a lineal effect, so there's really nothing we can do to not make it lineal. So my point is, if it's going to be lineal, whether it's a green screen or a 5-foot wide planter, why couldn't trees be appropriate, and why do they have to be spaced? Why does everybody think they have to be spaced at a certain on center, and couldn't they be groupings, like you say? Anyway, just
yeah,
something like that.
under discussion, I think that Chris's the point he was trying to make is that if we agree that we need more landscaping and we need it to be more cohesive and we need to look at it in a lot of detail, maybe we should just leave that to this group of landscape architects who would do it, as opposed to trying to mold that already.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
The issue with that is if we don't have something that is in on motion, if we don't have something that is on a line item that specifically addresses the median and looking into trees, then it doesn't necessarily need to be addressed.
Well, then you could just say that.
Well, you could say the use of trees, but
and put it in the motion. I think it should be in the
yeah,
motion.
but there is, as far as the species, as palms and stuff like that, there is a feeling among some people that the palms are not appropriate to this particular portion of the highway, and that's why I don't want us to be giving the applicant all this information. One says this and the other says the opposite.
I just feel like it should be restudied and to confirm that it's absolutely, positively not appropriate in this area. I'm hearing wishy-washy comments about, well, DART, during the meeting, they felt that palm trees may not be appropriate in this area. I'm not feeling like it's a strong conviction that it's absolutely not appropriate. I just wanted it to be restudied as an option.
So
there's only a very
confirmation.
small portion of this that tree is possible at all, and that is 10 feet and up. So we're talking about, a very small portion of this. But with that said, even within those 10-foot areas, it doesn't have to be palm trees, but we should just say study the potential use of trees in the median wherever possible.
Yeah, I think that's
and we put that into the minute. Okay. So,
Mr. Chair.
Gloria, yes, Danny.
Yeah, sorry. Just under this idea of this ad hoc committee of landscape architects, I don't like that idea so much because it's not very clear. I mean, who are we going to pick? Who's going to pick them? What if they don't like? What if somebody else wants to be on the committee? What if it was just a subcommittee, maybe of the landscape architects of ABR and HLC and maybe SFDB, people who are already appointed by the city to be landscape architects.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what he meant.
Those are the ones that have been showing up anyway.
Yeah.
For these.
But I think you're right, Danny.
That makes sense then, yeah.
It makes sense to modify that to just what you said.
Exactly, yeah. Thanks. So let's modify that portion of the motion to have made up of a group of landscape architects from those 3 aesthetic review boards. Okay, now you had the question on the median before we move on?
We put something in there. We decided that we were just going to put the use of trees in the median.
You have something like that,
to be resolved.
Lori?
Applicants study the potential use of trees in the median wherever possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
And before we vote on the motion, just want to ask the applicant, I know it's confusing already, but do you have a sense that you know what we're after?
Yes, I do want to clarify one thing. When you were talking, you spoke about creative solutions to what we have going on here, and I want to clarify, do you mean revisiting the engineering studies and the engineering work that's gone in this far to achieve at this configuration? Or do you mean study the ways we deal with, like in other words, we talk about the box. Are we talking about acceptance of the box as it stands here? Are we talking about how do we
Do tell us, are there other ways to manipulate the box?
I mean, because if that's the case,
Because my understanding is that nothing else we can't find any more room anywhere. I mean, this is the box. But if you're saying otherwise...
Okay.
It seems that the box is so constricting right now that the box is causing, no matter what we do with all this landscape, it's causing so much problems.
Yes.
That it's almost like, we really need to make sure that this box is what it's defined as right now. And that's really causing us a lot of anguish. Because what's coming out of it is just not working.
We're trying to work within the box.
Is there a way that this box can be molded in some way to give us any more flexibility with the rest of the landscape? And Yeah.
Greg Hart from SBCAG, and I'd like
Yeah.
to speak to that. I think it's frankly what the Planning Commission struggled with too in the hearing was whether the box was movable or not, and we really spent a lot of time looking at that. The answer, unfortunately, is no. And that really was the direction that the Planning Commission gave to the ABRs to work within the set of parameters that we have from an engineering standpoint to come up with the best landscaping plan that you can. And so we're willing to continue doing that with you, working with this subcommittee on that, but we're not making progress if we're talking about changing the parameters from an engineering standpoint.
No, and I'd like to just remind the board that it was ABR's charge to work with the applicant within the given physical constraints of the box. That's what was sent back to us. However, the reason that we're questioning it is that even after we had the box defined, you came back later and found more room. So that's why the box did change. So we were a little
If I could
hesitant to accept the
address
box.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so if this is the box, then presently what we have with the landscaping is not quite working. So we probably need some more innovative landscape work.
Thank you.
And that's kind of where it is. So if you want to change tracks, and that's the track that we have to go along. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, staff requests ABR representation at City Council next week.
Sure. And that's the 26th, you said?
The 26th. We don't have a time yet.
Yeah, we'll let you know. I'll be there. 26 just rings a date for me, but we will have probably at least 2 people there. Yeah, I'll make sure 2 people get there. 26.
Thank you for the recall. The recall. Very effective.
All right, item number 2, 3, and that's it. Yes. Item number 227, East Porter Street.
Is it? Oh, sorry.
I was wondering why you were coming.
You guys think we're on time?
Thank you all.
You've been patient.
Yeah, that was interesting to
Okay, if you state your name and proceed with your presentation.
My name is Tricia Knight. I'm with AT&T Wireless, and before you, we have the 27 East Coda building, where currently Verizon Wireless has a screen wall that goes around the building, and it's made out of a radio frequency friendly material, which allows the signal to pass through. And so we're just going to be co-locating, if you will, behind that existing wall. So there are no aesthetic changes to the building. We'll be all behind existing screening, and our equipment will be inside the building.
This is existing screening?
This is all existing screening, correct.
Oh. If the board doesn't mind, I'm just going to ask a quick question. I read on here that you're putting up an 8-foot wide, 8-foot diameter.
Next project.
Oh, okay. That's not this. Okay. So all of this existing screening exists. So you won't see any of that.
Correct.
And you're just replacing what's there already.
Correct.
With new units.
Yes, actually, the material itself is already the material that we need it for, meaning that it's the radio frequency friendly material. And so there's no height increases. There's
no bulk.
No bulk. There's no extensions.
Okay. I'm gonna. Any public comment? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for questions.
Mr. Chair, before we get into that, I guess I'll start with questions.
Yes.
Why are you here then?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe all telecom projects, it's my understanding, regardless of size, scale, whatever we're doing has to come before the board for consideration.
Okay.
Ever since I've been doing this, which has been quite a while, it's been quite a while since I've been before you, but I've always had to come and have you look at it.
Okay. So there's basically no change from any view
That's correct.
anywhere, and it's just
That's
behind this wall. So can we move that through since we're an hour behind?
Yeah, just let me ask a quick question.
Sure.
Your drawing say top of new / existing screen wall. Is it new or existing?
It's existing. So if you look at,
Can we take out the new?
yes. So if you look here, the screen wall, oh, excuse me, I'm way too loud. There's a, so I take that back. We have to take out the section that's going to be where our antennas are. So if you look at the photo simulations, wait, hold on one second. Do I have
I see another new here.
You know what?
And another
I am
new here.
so sorry. 27 East Coda. I'm on the wrong project. I am so sorry. Take everything back I just said. I completely apologize. I have 2 buildings in, and one I have submitted, but it's not before you yet. I apologize. This is East Coda. Yes, we will be. So the way that it happens now is this is an existing screen wall right here. That's what's in these photos that you can see right here. Extra set. Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm so sorry about that. So we have an existing screen wall that's on the building now. It is not of this radio frequency friendly material that I spoke to you just about. We are going to be mounting our antennas on the outside of that existing screen wall that's not of the material. It's a which is right here. There we go. I know, I apologize. I was on the wrong project. Okay, we're backing up.
So now we have an
this is an
extension of
existing
the
screen
mast.
wall right here. This is as it stands right now. This is the screen wall.
Yeah.
What we're going to be doing is affixing our antennas to that wall, and then we'll take and make that box slightly longer and slightly bulkier. So it's going to be coming out approximately 4 feet from that existing screen wall. Then we're going to put a set, because this is going to allow us to use this existing structure for our antennas to be able to affix them. It's already been structurally integrated into the rooftop. So we're going to utilize that to affix the antennas, but we don't want the antennas to be visible. So we'll go ahead and take a screen wall, and we're going to extend it around the outside of this existing box and make it slightly larger. This one right here is where Verizon Wireless is. They did the same thing. So I completely apologize for that confusion.
Okay, so I have a question if
Yes.
you're done with your presentation.
Yes, I am done.
Then why, if it shows extending here, why doesn't it show extending in the other direction if you're saying that you're extending it? You're showing a 16-foot extension and an 11-foot 8-inch existing. But this dimension looks exactly the same on the photo sim.
There is a open section, so this existing screen wall, if you were to come around the back side of it, is open. What we'd like to do is, so this would be open right here. We're going to be affixing our antennas to that and then extending the screen wall all the way down.
I know, but isn't this photo sim looking this direction?
This is looking, is that looking this direction? Yes.
Well, for one, it's showing only about a 2-foot difference in between the new and the existing.
This is going to be a 4-foot difference in between here. Existing and
Okay,
proposed. This is the length.
Can you just show me where the photo was taken from with respect to this drawing?
Okay. So if I'm looking here, hold on, I'm just trying to orient myself. This photo would have been taken from this direction. You are correct.
Okay, so it doesn't, the photo sim doesn't match.
Yeah, that probably is wrong because if this is north,
Wait, yeah,
then
I'm trying,
it has
I'm
to
on
be taken from this direction here.
Because I am on Coda right here, looking.
Yeah. Let's look at this one. Let's look at this plan here. It must be taken from this direction. You don't think? Because it's taken from Porter Street.
Right. Yes, that's right. It's from this
So
direction.
right now we're looking this
That's
way here like
correct.
that.
Yes, that is where the photo is taken.
Okay, so you're expanding it in this direction.
Correct. Which is what's giving you the longer profile
And you're
here.
not doing anything in this direction.
That's correct.
Is that a cantilever right there? What is? Can you explain that?
This right here.
No.
Oh.
This. It's past this wall 9 inches. Is that a cantilever?
That is. It is.
It was back on my other drawing.
Yeah. Let me. Hold on. Is it going to be this way? I believe that's just because the roof steps down.
Yeah. What's up with that?
It's sitting
So
on
it's
top.
A.
curb?
Existing building, yeah. So it's like if you're on the rooftop, it steps down one level to the next level of the roof.
So it's going over a parapet wall?
It's not going over a parapet wall. There's going to be footings. So all four corners or sections of this are going to have footings. So there will be footings on those corners, but they're not going to be visible because of the existing parapet.
I had another question, and that is, you mentioned that.
I don't see that. I don't see that.
Are you catching him or no?
No.
So this is the second section of the roof. So there's a it's like I want to say a curb.
Is this roof equal to this roof height?
No, this one's lower.
This one's lower.
Correct.
So that'll bulb out past it.
It looks exactly the same from this side.
It does.
This one's a little lower.
It might be lower on the inside, and that would be a parapet wall, and it's just spanning the parapet wall, but it's the same height. That's why we're seeing it the same height.
Right, the same height.
The top of the wall is the same, but you're not seeing what's going on underneath. The photo sim's just showing you what.
Okay, let's bring...
But I had one more question. You
Sure.
mentioned that you were mounting something on the outside, but it doesn't show up on the photo sim of the proposed. How come?
Because we're not mounting any. So the visual impacts as this is going to be. So right now this is a screen wall. We're just planning on making it bigger. So we're mounting this to
On the
outside,
inside.
on the outside of this. We're going to mount these antennas to the outside of this existing wall.
Okay, but this wall looks flush
It
with
is.
that.
No, it's not. It's definitely
It's
step
set
back.
back.
Yes, it's step back. We're going to be, that extension is actually going to make it appear more flush because we're going to be coming closer to the edge of the building with that 2-foot extension out from the existing screen wall. So right now it's a substantial distance from the edge of the building. And so we're basically adding more dimensions to it on the outside.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
Chris, you had a question?
I had a couple.
Let me go this way. We're going to come around this way.
Okay.
John. Chris?
So what is the new screen wall material?
It is a fiberglass type material. They're pretty used extensively throughout the city, and so they're able to be textured to match and painted to match this specific application very well. But a lot of it, we've done tile, we've done Spanish tile, we've done chimneys.
So it visually appeared the same?
It visually appears the same. That's key.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess my only other question was, will I actually get coverage downtown now?
Yes, that's one of the biggest problems for AT&T right now, is the capacity downtown.
I had a question. Is
Yes.
that all of this material you said is the same as this material?
This is not. So this is not of that radio frequency friendly material that I was originally talking about on the wrong project. This is actual just wood. It was originally designed to screen the mechanical. There's some air conditioning units and stuff, so that was the original screening. Instead of taking that whole thing down, we decided to go ahead and utilize that because it's already structurally integrated into the rooftop. So it just made sense to utilize that and then screen it a little bit larger.
Okay, so my question would be, I see you're carrying it all the way in front here.
Correct.
And you want to maintain the existing structure. That's why you're using it. So my question would be, is that why couldn't you mount all of this equipment on the inside and it sees through this new, you use the same structure but take the vertical or whatever paneling that's off of it, you use the structural portion of it and you mount your special panel in front of it, and then whatever your array is in here can then see through it. That way we won't have to increase
These are
the mass.
all structural beams. They're beams that are holding this to the rooftop.
Right.
The antennas are not able to work very well with metal. So we had looked at that originally. I said, well, that would just be beautiful if I could just go behind this existing, cut out the sections that we need, locate right behind that. But we would have to compromise these metal beams in order to do that, in order to get the separation. So I've got from here to here, there's another 2 beams here. And then this azimuth, as they call it, which is the direction the antennas are shooting, is a little tricky. They're trying to shoot downtown. This is oriented more just directly towards CODA. So we actually need to tweak these antennas to get the downtown direction that they need. And so there actually had to be a little bit more, and we would not be able to do that with all of these structural beams.
And so, you know, couldn't you see how you have come off of here? Couldn't this be like that? And then even though they point at an angle, see how those point at an angle? They couldn't be like here, 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 and then this screen come back to there?
I imagine we could work with a couple feet there. I do know that that was one of the more complicated design elements.
Because I think this amount of mass that you're increasing here, and you can see it's already having a conflict with the existing building. I think it's something that, and it's such a visible mass that you're adding to this, that anything you can do to bring that back to the
I think they could do it by a couple feet, yeah.
Mr. Chair, are we still in questions?
Yes. We finished here. We're down here. Unless you have another question. I could come back to you.
No, I don't. I know Gary had a question, though. I wanted to make sure we didn't go too far into comments.
No. Gary?
Just a simple question. On the existing portion, I was looking at the elevations, and I'm just wondering if this is how it is existing. Can we go to A3? So currently this is all open. We can see the structural beams and all of that, and the antennas and everything. This is open.
Correct.
And this is from the ocean going this way. If the ocean view is right here. Right?
No, it should be from the upper state side. Is the only side that's open.
No, that's open from Coda, according to your drawing.
This would be.
That's Coda. That's the
right
front.
here.
Yeah.
So this is the front.
That's right.
So yeah, that. That's
so it's
interesting. You
not
don't have any photographs of that?
Visible? No, I do not. It's not visible from street level.
And is there a wall here or not? There's not a wall there?
There is a wall there. So, but I don't think I have the view. Kinda. Well, no, this is from the other direction, but you're really not able to see it. So that wall. Let's see. New 18 new. No, this is the new. That's
so
the new.
There currently isn't a wall there, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's the part of what we'd be extending.
Oh, but there was a wall back here.
See, isn't this the open section that we're looking at right here? This is the only open section, which should be right there, correct? Yeah, so this wall is there, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Paul, questions?
None.
Okay. Comments?
None.
Gary? Comments?
I mean, it's existing. It's almost an existing situation, and it's not really the best situation that was done in the past. I have some concerns with this open section where there's a possibility we have some new, larger buildings that are being built in the funk zone, and this section being open kind of bothers me because it deters from it. Kind of opens up the whole reason why we're trying to hide it. It leaves it all open, and we can see antennas from the back side of it, I suppose, if you were in an upper level in a different room. So this little area right here concerns me, and I'd like to see what the other board members say on it. As far as expanding out 4 feet, I don't have a lot of problems with it. I would like to see that the penthouse has some sort of purpose. Right now it doesn't. It's a square box all the way around it. It doesn't have any louvers on it. It doesn't have a chimney stack. It doesn't have fenestration. It doesn't have a door. It's the top of a building without a purpose. And I was wondering if you could put a purpose in it. A window, fenestration, something that makes it look like it's integral to the building.
Is that a question to me, or is that to the board?
No,
okay.
That's just my comment.
Okay. You had no comments, you said? Dawn, comments?
No comment.
Chris?
No, not really either. I mean, it's the top of a 5-story building, and I don't think you can really see. I walk over here all the time, and I don't look up there. So I'm going to say no comments.
Okay. I'm going to say I think I'm okay with this here. I'd like that's 2'2", and I think 2 feet here. This one is 2 feet. Is this?
This is the one that's the largest.
Yeah.
You'll see it's 5
This
feet.
one is 2 feet here, and this one is 2 feet. So I'm thinking that if we can get this back here and put that unit there and have them pointing this way, and have this minimized
Might need
in
to come
terms
out
of the
a little bit more
extension,
that way. Okay.
then that would be much better. This is already causing a conflict I can see with the existing building, and I think reducing the mass is going to help. I'm not too worried about this right now. Well, not right now. Is there a piece of equipment that's right here? What's this here?
Air conditioning unit.
Okay, so
There's a couple of them over here.
yeah, if there wasn't that, I'd probably want this closed off with the same screen. But if there's equipment right there, I just think it's not that worthwhile to do that right now. So and then otherwise, I think I'd be all right with it.
I'm worried about that one. I know they had a technical restraint, but I'll see what they can do.
It may be, well, for me, I definitely would want to minimize that. I mean, if they have to rebuild this portion of it or use structure that comes back to one more
Right.
to make that work, then I think that's what might have to be done. But anyway, who would like to make a motion? No.
Not me. I'm gonna be opposed.
I'll make a motion for approval as submitted with no significant aesthetic impacts.
As is, or?
Yeah, otherwise it wouldn't. Otherwise, it's not going to be a motion for approval.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Otherwise, it's going to be coming back.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
One second.
Okay, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
2, are you against?
Oh, I was going to abstain because I walked out.
You can abstain.
I'm going to abstain because I walked out. Sorry, I had to make a phone call.
So that's 2 for, 2 against, 1 abstention. How does that work?
The motion fails.
Motion failed. Okay.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Any other motions?
Okay, I'll make a motion for a 2-week continuance to come back to the board with the applicant to study a slight reduction in the screen to the northwest in order to...
Southwest?
Oh,
This is north?
You're moving it to the northwest,
Okay.
right? Or am I mistaken on that?
meaning the reduction would be to the southeast.
Reduction to the northwest, a reduction...
The direction of the northwest.
Okay, you understand.
I do.
A slight reduction in order to keep the... I don't know.
Reduce
I'm
the
gonna leave
bulk,
that.
maybe?
I'm gonna. I don't think it does anything to the bulk, but
Okay.
there was a reason that Chris asked for it, and under discussion, I'm going to let him state why he feels that way.
Yeah.
So that's my motion.
Okay, under discussion, I think it minimizes the increase in the size, bulk, and scale of the enclosure.
Okay.
We don't have a seconder yet.
Okay. We don't have a second. Do a second?
Chris will.
Chris, second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? 1 extension. So motion passes. So we have 3 for, 1 against, 1 abstention. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. The
So
next
that
one's mine too. So I'll
takes
sit.
out the item number 3.
Be sure to be on the right project this time, I promise. How embarrassing.
740 Dolores Avenue. Is that it?
That is correct, yes.
So this is to install 1 8-foot diameter microwave antenna.
Yes. This is on city property. Working with the Public Works Department. Just to give a little background, the reason AT&T is having to install these microwave dishes is that there is a drastic need for a fiber connection within the network to handle all of those wonderful smartphones. And where there is not a fiber connection available, they can substitute that with a microwave connection. So this is on city property. There's currently 2 4-foot dishes there now, and they need the 8-foot dish to handle the broadening of their network. The Public Works, they're working through with the Public Works Department on the leasing side of it, so that's where we are.
Well, this is right on top of the mesa.
Yes, that is correct.
Can you show us what it looks like?
Yes. Oh, there we go. And I brought another set too. Right. So we currently have these 2 4-foot dishes.
Here, point out that one.
Sure. These 2 4-foot dishes right here are to be removed, and this 1 8-foot dish is to be installed. These are AT&T's panel antennas on the top of the tower and various other city emergency services antennas throughout the site.
Wait, is this visible from any?
It is. You can see. I mean, it's on a hilltop. We do have, some neighborhoods down here and stuff. So yes, I mean, there is visual impacts associated with it, but we're removing 2 smaller dishes of the same surface area, and installing 1 larger one.
I have a question.
Okay, questions on the board?
My question is
Dawn.
this scale-wise and size-wise is exactly the same as this one?
That is
the only
correct.
difference is that there's a dish here, and there's not one here.
Yes, there are these 2 small 4-footers. These are 4
Oh, that's the only thing you're doing.
That's all we're doing.
So this whole tower stays exactly the same?
Exactly the same. We just have to remove these 2 small 4-foot dishes and install the 1 larger 8-foot to enhance the fiber, like I was talking to you about.
That's the scale right there?
That is the scale, correct.
Whoa.
Can we ask questions or we do public
When
comment?
question? Oh, we didn't do public comment. Anyone from the public would like to speak on it? See no one? Going back to board.
So you're taking out 2 of the smaller ones and you're replacing it with 1 of the larger ones.
Correct.
Is there an opportunity that you could put 2 more smaller ones for a total of 4 small ones in place of the 1 large one?
It's not preferred, and the only reason why is this, the area that this is covering is becoming harder and harder to cover, and there's capacity issues. And so with that, they need to have that strong fiber network that I was talking about. And so when they design the network, they just always design it with this. This has to connect to somewhere, and so there's a microwave network. They do it with the smallest dishes wherever they can. In this particular instance, the engineers can't use the smaller dishes, or of course they would. They know it's easier for us from a zoning standpoint, easier from a planning standpoint, but in this case, they can't.
You wouldn't have a photo of there from standing on one of these public streets here
I do
or
not.
neighbor's backyard
I
or
do
anything
not.
like that?
No, I don't.
Because I know from this side, people don't see it down
Yeah.
this hill because this is kind of the crown of the hill. So it's
Exactly,
really
and we're
from
on the front.
People who are right here.
And this
or
is their
people who-
backyards right
their
here.
backyard
Yeah.
view back.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion for indefinite continuance to return with photos from the surrounding neighborhoods, especially the residential areas.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have a second? Second. We have a second by Chris. Under discussion, does the board on this side have any additional thoughts?
Well, we have a motion on the floor.
Just
We just want to see if it's going in the direction the whole board. I just want to see, do you have, what we're doing is asking for more photos at this point because of its size.
We do need more photos, definitely, but I'd like to just say that the direction that you're asking for photos from is not the worst area of where you see this.
I just said additional photos, but
Okay.
especially from the
Leah,
neighboring.
there's some areas on Cliff Drive, and I mean, this is one of the worst cell towers we see in town.
Okay.
So maybe
I think
additional
that there
areas
you
you
can
could
see
ask
things from the Mesa Shopping Center. You can see this, and you can see it from the La Corina, the Island View area, all that area. You can see it pretty visibly. So I'd like to have you're going to do a photo sim, I'd like to see what an 8-foot dish looks like on a photo sim from those areas.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to just revise my comment to state that the applicant is to return with additional photos from all surrounding areas and photo simulations of the proposed 8-foot dish from those
Public view corridors.
Okay.
If I can just clarify.
2 weeks.
One item.
Can we do indefinite like you suggested? I'm just not sure how long that'll take to get the proper.
What's important for us is that we have some context. So if you stand in between two houses and we see that the cell tower is this big, then that's one thing.
Okay.
But from this view, we don't know that the houses are right here and that thing is, an 8-foot thing is almost as big as a story in a person's house. So we need to have some context with the perspective of the photos.
Great.
Got it.
Thanks very much. All those in favor?
Kind of wondering if there's any opportunity for screen planting, like long-term plant some trees around there. If it is such an eyesore, I don't know what the site. I'm trying to just go into the site plan here to see if there's any
What
room.
does the site look like?
Well, here's so you can kind of see the trees in the foreground.
I'll take 100 years for the tree to
A
grow.
house that was built one time and we said that they couldn't put a window. They had no windows on one side of the house and they did it because of that. Remember that?
It's not a bad comment.
The clarification that Gary's making reference to is somebody did a second-story addition on their house, and they had no windows on this one elevation. We said, well, why? And they said, well, look, this is why. And they showed us a photograph, which is from this person's perspective, and it's like, oh, wow. Now we understand, so.
Can I ask the board a question then in the spirit of that? If we do show from the photos that this appears to be an eyesore, and it sounds like it kind of is, would the board be open to some design options, meaning that we all know kind of what they are, some sort of screened element, whether it be a tree or a water tank or something to get the antennas inside of something to better screen it?
I would say trees are probably a better option than a water tank.
Okay.
You're not talking about trees. You're talking about one of the towers that looks like a tree.
The faux tree.
No.
We've got quite a few of them in the county now.
You don't have any in the city.
You don't have any in the city. Okay.
There's a reason for that.
Okay.
Serious? I mean, you're serious? People wouldn't support that?
They're getting pretty good. I can bring pictures of as-built of the most recent ones in the county. I know
There's a motion on the table, and
Okay,
the
sorry.
only thing I'd like to do to it is add if the seconder made the secondary comment to look for alternative ways of screening, and I'll leave that up to you.
Okay.
And any opportunities for landscaping? Is that what you wanted to add, or?
Yeah, and any opportunities for landscaping, Gloria.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries.
Great.
So we see you
Sorry
when you
about
come
that.
back on. Thanks very much. Okay, and then the last item of the evening, 530 West Coda Street. It's 4.
This thing's it's the eyesores that kind of distance.
Thank you. Mark Morando, agent for the owner, Terry Trevelyan.
Is this? We have. This is not a new project. So we have some.
Yes, it is a new
we have
project.
some. It is a new project.
Correct. It's created from an enforcement case for a portion of a missing wall along San Pasqual Street.
Okay, and we already have 2 speaker slips. So let's 3 speaker slips. Oh, this is.
She filled out the wrong one, but I changed
Okay. Okay. So run us through where we are.
Go to the site plan.
3 speaker slips.
So basically,
4 speaker slips.
we're on the 500 block of San Pasqual. This is actually it's the 600 block. This is 530 West Coda, and then as it dead ends over here into the freeway, right next door was the Habitat for Humanity project. The 4 units. It was basically this is a 24-unit apartment buildings with 1 bedrooms, and then there's 2 2-bedrooms here, and the parking's at the back.
Okay. Show us what we got here.
This is looking from the front, kind of right here up at the apartments. There's some railroad ties that run all the way along the property line here. They're about 14 inches high, and they also run along Coda Street. Now this is on this end where the area of work is. There's actually like another, right here. There's another layer. There's a second layer of railroad ties that are up. We're going to replace these all the way around in the gray with CMU to match the existing CMU. And we're just going to leave this one here. Now, the real issue is this right here. This section, it's 4 feet 8 high to the top of the CMU here, and it's 4 feet wide exactly. And that is right here. And it's adjacent to this like 19-foot wall. That's 9'1" here at the property line, and every 2 feet it goes up 33 inches. So, well, this is on the corner, kind of right here, but those are the railroad ties. Let's see. That's the way it looks today. I've got better.
So this is a new project that was built not too long ago?
Right, that's a 618.
Because I remember this steep wall here.
Correct. This is the wall that's built now with the root ball.
Right.
And then Terry just removed the root ball and the railroad ties that were on top of it and took the soil back 1 to 1.
Right.
And this is the wall that's next door.
That's a 1 to 1?
45 degrees.
Yeah.
It looks like 45, yeah.
You can see it from the side here, too.
Right.
So on top, when you get onto the top of up here, this is what you see along the front. The palm tree still remains, and this is the top of their wall with their 42-inch guardrail, and this is the top, and you can see their door, so it daylights. So originally when this project came before you preliminary-wise, they had shown like a side cut that came out like kind of like across here up to this wall, so they would have daylighted down here on their walkway, but that easement was never granted, and so we require a modification to replace this 4-foot section of wall that's 48 inches wide.
So we are, you guys here, meaning you, this is you're representing this owner.
Correct. 530 West Coda, the 26-unit apartment complex right here.
Okay.
So this is...
And that's the enforcement case here to fill that?
Correct.
And all of this will get, what happens all here? I'm in questions now, sorry. Wait. Before, let's finish your presentation, then we go on to public comment, then we'll go into questions. Sorry. I kind of jumped ahead. Are you finished? Or?
Yeah, actually, there's some original pictures, just real quick, another couple minutes. These are pretty faded, but these were the view along San Pasqual Street. What happened was the sidewalk that went along the front here, and then it stopped. So you can see back in the old days, the sidewalk was actually out along the curb and not up against the property line. And so when they took out all the vegetation when they did the project, as you walk down, this is what was exposed. So this is actually the property line. So this 4-foot section here, the wall was never built in 1962. And so when they moved and they put the sidewalk to here and replaced it, this became the parkway, and then there was the big gap with the root ball on top.
Okay, and you're only replacing to this height or all the way up to here?
We're only to the height of the existing block, which is right here, which is exactly 4 feet 8 inches off the sidewalk.
Okay.
And it's 48 inches wide.
Okay.
Because those railroad ties have been removed, and also since these railroad ties are tilting into the right-of-way, we have to replace them to get them vertical and get them out of the right-of-way. And along the top, let's see, right here, we were reposing a 6-foot wood fence here and then a 15 feet 8-foot wood fence here. But this requires a mod because of the wall height here is already like 19 feet plus this, but from here it's only like about 5 plus 4, so it's 9. So if we put something up, then if it's over 8 feet in the setback, we need a mod.
So you have the fence in here.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, well, actually, we're requesting a mod for that. So there's two mods. There's one for the wall, and then one for the.
I'm still requesting it.
Oh, you're still requesting a mod for that fence on top of the dirt.
Correct. This one's 6 feet, and then when you get way down in the corner, way down here in this far corner, if you're looking across the parking lot from Coda Street, this is the Habitat project, and the wall's out on San Pasquale that's missing. The other fence is way down here in the corner, which is actually looking down into it, and the fence goes from about across here, 8 feet high, and then the other one comes up along the building here.
So this it.
I would just like at the end, if Mark, you could just one by one go through all the requests, so I make sure I understand all of them.
There's only two requests. One is to replace the wall at 4 feet 8 that's missing.
Okay.
It's 4 feet wide by 4 feet 8 inches high, and that requires a lot because it exceeds 3 feet 6 in the front yard. And then the other one is the fence. That's 6 feet because it exceeds 8 feet, given that the grade on the other side is about 9 feet below the top of their fence.
But there's a third part, and it's the railroad ties replacing
and
with
the
a
railroad
36
ties along the front.
36-inch high wall is what you're
Right here, this little corner here is about 30 inches high, and then the rest of them are less than 24, between 16 and 24, 2 blocks to 3 blocks high. So that's around the corner where it's 30 inches, and then this is 14 right now. We're just going to go to 16.
And then the fence that goes along here is, where is that?
It's up here, along the Habitat, right where the wrought iron is.
You're drawing a line way up in the air, and I'm not understanding what
this
you're
right
drawing.
here.
So it stays up this high even though the grade keeps
No,
falling?
actually it keeps falling down.
It follows the grade, and
It
it
looks
only
like there's
stays
already a fence on that location.
There is. That's the guardrail that keeps you from...
And then you're proposing, what you're proposing is something way back here?
No, it's right here in front of it.
This is his property.
Right.
Why are you proposing that?
For privacy. The owner wants to have it for privacy. There was an agreement originally that they would replace it with a privacy fence, and a letter in 2008 that when they built this wall, because originally this wall, the way they had represented it was that they were going to use this property as like a landscape easement and then put a wall on top of it for privacy between the two. She's got a 12-foot setback to this wall.
Who has the setback? Who has
530 West Coda to the commercial building right here. Well, it's actually 14 feet. So that...
I thought we were talking about here. Isn't this where you want to put a fence?
Right, this is the fence right here.
Yeah. So this is 14
And this is the Habitat building right here.
setback, right?
And so where's the grade? This is the top, and then where's the grade on the other side
Well,
of the
this is the door right here coming out of one of the unit on the second
It
floor.
drops down, what, about 5 feet
Yeah.
to their grade?
Yeah, it depends on where it is. Like over here it's 5 feet, over here it's probably 4 feet.
This is looking at it from the other side.
Right, this is looking at it from the parking lot.
So we're
coming back
retaining,
this way.
we're retaining on both sides this little sliver of land is what's going on.
Correct. Right, this
A wall
lot
of
here.
earth.
Here,
Thick wall of earth.
take a look at this. This is the apartment.
14-foot thick wall of earth.
This is San Pasquale Street, and this is Coda Street. This is the top of the apartment from the sky. Before the Habitat, this
Land was all
land was all sloping down, and it's about 4 feet high here, and about 19 feet high here, and they shored this up all the way along and put in the 4 units with the garages at the back.
So now we have this little sliver of land that we're retaining up high.
Correct, which is this.
Okay.
And this is at the front, what's there right now.
Okay. So is any landscape work
Well, we're
going to
Correct.
going on with this fence?
Contracting with Arcadia Studio, but we haven't created a design plan.
And
yet.
is that 6-foot fence going to start from here or
No,
back
it's gonna be
here?
back
Or
here at the top.
is that shown here?
Yeah.
What that distance is?
Correct.
From there to there?
Yeah, and I keep asking questions, and it's inappropriate at this time, so we should go to public comment.
So we'll go to public comment. Are you all right, Mark? You finish your presentation?
Yes, thank you.
So we have Daddy Picott, followed by Janice McCulloch. Then we followed by Terry Trevelyan, and then Will Rivera. So Daddy in front of Joyce? Oh, Joyce can go in front of Daddy. Okay. Or together. All right.
Great. And we have some photos as well. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for reviewing this proposal this afternoon. My name is Joyce McCullough. I'm the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity of Southern Santa Barbara County. We are the developer of the project that we've been talking about. I'm just here to tell you I appreciate the effort for the 4-foot CMU wall, and that would be good to get that enforcement action and corrected. It's an effort that we had been attempting to make with Mrs. Trevelyan ever since we took over the property in 2007 and began our development process. I have no problem with the CMU wall. I do have a problem with the 6-foot wood fence adjacent to our already existing fence, which is, I believe, erroneously called a guardrail. It is a wrought iron fence. So I wanted to just bring some photos. We've got some additional photos. Here's a pack for down there and one for the center.
The center for the TV camera.
Okay. So on this first page, you see pictures taken from our perspective. The one in the upper left-hand corner is the conditions that existed before we started, and you can see that it was pretty much just a tangle of weeds on our property as well as on this adjacent hillside. While we were under construction, we installed caissons to a depth of 40 feet every 20 feet in order to retain this little sliver of land. And as long as recent as October 29th, 2010, you can see that the condition that you see on that little hill still existed. We made every attempt to work with Mrs. Trevelyan to try and mitigate for that. And as late as November 2009, her attorney said that she wasn't willing to work with us, and so we were forced to go this route with these caissons, which we did bring to you and have approved. The second sheet here, these are photos that you saw today.
Down here?
Yep.
Sorry.
And so you see the way it looks from across the street today. There has been a bit of grading and cleaning up of the site, and the big root ball that was there that extended up as high as the top of our retaining wall has been removed. I took a photo today from our property, and now that will really show you the drop, the 42-inch wrought iron fence that sits atop the retaining wall there, and that then becomes just their backyard, their egress, and some daylighting for the families. This page here, these photos also show from today. They show what the situation looks like. There has been some grading back to a point, and this, as you can see, is virgin land here. At the bottom, you can see a view from the sidewalk, which shows conditions. This CMU wall was existing when we started, and we built the caisson wall. And then I also took a photo from Solo Street showing that our fence actually is at the top of all the windows and doors. This fence was designed particularly with the residents in mind so that this wouldn't become a canyon that would be dark and not allow them any daylight into their upstairs units there. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you? I wanted to say I believe that this fence is unnecessary. There is a fence there. It's a second fence. I think it would detract from the quality of life for our Habitat homeowners. Their second-story rooms would be blocked from daylight. And further, I believe that if you put a second fence right up against the fence that we installed, the maintenance from our side would be difficult, if not impossible, and would create a very deteriorating situation. The two drawings that you have there were from original plans that we had for our project, and I've invited our architect, Eddie Pikert, to come and make a couple of technical comments as well.
Thanks, Joyce. Yeah, I would only say that it's really unfortunate that we weren't able to work something out to reduce the size of that retaining wall. We had offered to do the grading and do landscaping on the adjacent property. However, that was unable to work that out. So you can see by the section over there, you can see in that drawing that's one of the locations along the length of the building in which we have the retaining wall and these narrow yards that have some exit doors and some windows for the residents there. And then you see in the same drawing, you see the wrought iron fence on top of the wall. And so, as Joyce was explaining, to put a 6-foot-high wood fence on top of that, or right behind that wall, would really, block the light. And I think the point is that there's a reason why there's an ordinance that dictates, how high a wall you can build in those particular circumstances, and that's why they're asking for a modification here. Excuse me. And we just believe that a modification under these circumstances would be inappropriate, as it would really have a deleterious effect on the quality of life of the residents living in the units there. So.
And I have two more comments to make. This was a privacy fence, according to Mr. Mirando's comments, and you can see that this fence, as was pointed out, would be atop where the window level is. This is about a 5-foot drop here. You can't really see over that. Furthermore, the end of this building has no windows on it at all. So the privacy issue, I believe, is not valid.
Thanks. So we have Terry Trevelyan followed by Will Rivera. Finished, Eddie?
Hi, my name is Terry Trevelyan. My husband, with two partners, built the Carla Apartments almost 50 years ago, and at the time were required to have the setback as you see we have today. The grade was higher, as it was before Habitat for Humanity got their project approved. And then I met with the Habitat for Humanity, and what they told me they wanted to do, as far as involving me, was have access to my property to work on the landscaping. And when I met with them subsequent to that, what they presented me with was an easement that they wanted to end up with an easement forever so they could have unlimited, unrestricted access to my property. And that's when I stopped all communication with the Habitat for Humanity, with my attorney. And when they changed the grade of the property, the city allowed them to lower the grade to the detriment of my property. The property had been at that high grade because there was a house over there that had caught on fire. The city let them build 4 units in a tiny, tiny property. That's neither here nor there. That's what's built. But once the wall was put there so that they could walk outside their second story, I have a letter back in October of 2008 signed by Joyce saying that when the project's finished, no other vegetation would be disturbed, and when the project is complete, it would include a fence atop the retaining wall on the property line to assure privacy for both sides. Now, a wrought iron railing has nothing to do with privacy, and I'm not interested in having 26 families of apartment tenants look over into the windows of 4 new families in those apartments. So that's why I want to put a 6-foot fence there. That's what was there. And the city allowed them to lower their grade back from the street and to lower it down on that side of the property. It's only been to the detriment of my property by thousands and thousands of dollars. this enforcement letter saying I have to come up with the retaining wall, I understand that. I understand the slope of 1 to 1. That's what the slope was before the vegetation had grown so unruly, which is how it's been for 50 years on their property as well as on ours. So after I got the enforcement letter, I've had the root ball, well, first I had a couple of trees removed on the property, which I agreed to in this room at a meeting years ago. And then we've since removed the root ball. We've put the jute across the earth so it doesn't fall down into the street. And I've tried to fulfill everything that was mentioned in the enforcement letter, which was basically 3 things. Put a section of the wall that wasn't there, and
replace the railroad ties.
Yeah, and there were 4 railroad ties on top of that, which we removed the 4 railroad ties. And then they say that the 2 courses of railroad ties around the perimeter of Carl Apartments on the San Pasqual side and the Coda side were encroaching into the public right-of-way, because after 50 years they're leaning. So that's fine with me to remove those and put a wall that's not encroaching into the public right-of-way. But I have no interest in having my people look over into the Habitat for Humanity, as I have no interest in them peering through their wrought iron railing to look at my property, which is still my property. It's not the Habitat for Humanity's property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Okay, Will Rivera.
Hi, my name is Will Rivera, and I also, as a board member of Habitat, am opposed to this fence. It's unfortunate that it's actually come to this point. In all due respects, we understand the review process very well, and Chair and members of the board, we all recognize that you like working with neighborhoods early on in the projects, which we tried very, very hard to do. And it's unfortunate that we were required to build that retaining wall the way we were, but it's basically the result of not being able to work with our neighbor. So it's a result of that circumstance that has brought us to this point. And it's also unfortunate that, our neighbor has not recognized this as, she said it as a deterrent. This project has enhanced this neighborhood, as all of our projects for Habitat. We take special pride in creating something special for City of Santa Barbara and the neighborhoods and communities. And we feel like this is a very, very nice project, and we feel like the recent removal of all those trees were unnecessary. They were adequate in the privacy, and now create an eyesore for the community, and which is now requiring to have this fence where it didn't need to have a fence because there was so much vegetation before. It's unsightly, and it's unnecessary, and we feel like it would be a detriment to the neighbors not getting any daylight into that area. So it's somewhat ridiculous, and we feel like we've done everything that we've done to be a good neighbor, and so we would hope that you would not support putting the fence. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll close that portion and bring it back to the board for questions. So public comments closed.
I just had one comment for you to make sure you understand the way the 2 fences being that close to one another, the height gets added together from the highest point to the lowest point. And if there was 5 feet separation between the fences, a modification wouldn't be needed.
So if they were 5 feet here and then the fence were here, you would not need a
Right.
mod.
Just to make sure you
But
understand
ABR would have
that.
been required anyway?
Correct, because it requires a building permit. But you could do a 3.6 high from grade without ABR or a building permit.
And am I right that if this land was originally where it was, a 6-foot fence could be erected on the property line without?
Correct.
It's only
Originally,
because
kind
this
of
land
went
was
like
taken
this.
down to this level, right? Okay. All right. So, questions? Dawn?
I have a couple.
Mm-hmm.
How much vegetation was removed up there in this area, and who removed it? All this. There was a lot of. I'm hearing there was a lot of vegetation that provided privacy, and then it was removed.
Well, the whole top of the bluff, this whole top of the lot was just all vegetation. It was so overgrown. There was
And it
three
stopped here?
3 different fences. No, it grew out into here, and there was a couple of trees that were dying that were removed back in '08, and the root ball that you see in the photo. This is what it looked like. That's what it looked like. And basically that went all the way across their lot, and the house sat in the middle, and it was surrounded by vegetation as well.
So there was a lot. So I'm still not getting an answer to my question. There was a lot of vegetation in this area, and it was all
there
removed.
was trees, yeah.
And they were all dead.
There's 3 of them that were dead, I believe.
But why did all the vegetation get removed? That was my question.
I don't know. Right now there's some bougainvillea and some other bushes up there, but we're going to replant it with a landscape plan. I don't know why it was removed, to be honest with you.
I have
Or when
another
it was
question.
removed.
What is? There's a drawing that showed. Yeah. What is this gray
You have it upside down.
area? I have it upside down right side up for him. But do you know, or can somebody answer this? Maybe it's not you, Mark, but maybe Daddy can answer this question. What's the gray area in there?
It's probably
It
grading.
doesn't say exactly what it is. I'm just wondering what that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and board members, we had originally intended, we were trying to work with the neighbor to drop the grade down there so we wouldn't have to have quite that massive a retaining wall over there. So we had a plan that showed where we would do the grading, and we offered to build that little piece of 4-foot retaining wall as part of the work that we were proposing. And the whole idea was that we were prepared to go in there at Habitat's expense and do the landscaping and make it all beautiful again. But again, we weren't able to work it out. So,
Well, my question is, why would you ever have to add more grade when the grade?
no, we didn't add the grade. We were planning
that
to.
was a
We were
plan.
proposing to remove.
They were going to reduce that.
Oh, this was going to be a reduction.
Proposal to
Right.
reduce it.
So that we
Because
could
it was
reduce
high,
the
the
retaining
existing
wall.
grade was way up here,
Right.
and that was your retaining wall design,
Exactly.
right there.
To deal with it.
So then,
That's where it still is, right?
That's where it still is.
but it's not, because
it's still
this is
there.
way down here.
No, that's because they have the
With the
owners
mitigation,
have
taking off all of the trees and everything.
Oh, so the grade
I've
the
drawn
grade
that.
when you
Some
were
has come
doing
out.
it,
exactly.
the grade when you were working on the project was way up here.
Right.
Since then, a
They've removed-
significant amount of grade has been removed.
Yeah, that's
to
why you see the
expose.
caissons there exposed below the
Here's
the
a
surface.
section.
Because that was my next question, is why are there exposed caissons? We never would have approved exposed caissons.
Yeah, we poured those. We specially created a special form to
That's
make
when
them look.
the root ball was here, and then we had to remove the railroad ties and take this down in order to keep the dirt from going into the right-of-way. So this soil had to be removed, and that's been kind of the crux of this whole situation, is that without that root ball being removed, they had to build this wall, and now that it is removed, it's exposed this area of land that needs to be revegetated and the caissons.
Okay. I'm starting to get the idea. Now, the last question I have is kind of for Habitat, is I'm hearing from the property owner, from Terry, that that you guys offered to work with her, but did you do so with the pretense that they grant the easement, or did you just offer to work with them without granting an easement?
We had a draft of an easement agreement that we showed to Mrs. Trevelyan at a first meeting in 2007. We said it was a draft, and she believed that it was not. And so we had then, and I've got letters here starting from March when we first introduced ourselves, then November after the meeting that she referred to, where I clarified that, and I said, we want to be good neighbors, we want to discuss our plans with you, we want to cooperate to provide better drainage, and in no way would this portion of the property become the Habitat homeowner's backyard. And she raised a point at that meeting that she considered earth removal was excessive. We never heard from her after that. I wrote to her again in 2008, and in 2009 I said we'd like to excavate and remove enough soil at the southern side of our property in order to lower the ground floor. At the property line, we plan to construct a block wall with a fence atop for privacy between the two properties and plan to landscape on our side of the wall with vegetation to provide additional screening. I didn't hear anything back from her after that letter. In September of 2009, I sent another letter and said, as we've detailed in previous phone and email messages, reiterated that same thing. Asked that in order to do that, we would be able to over-excavate on the property and then replace at our cost the 4-foot wall that's under discussion now. So we have discovered through the surveying and civil engineering process the wall we intend to build at the sidewalk along San Pasqual will not be able to connect to the block wall adjacent to the sidewalk on your property. There will be a gap between the property line and your wall, as well as a slight jog back to our wall, to accommodate placing all the footings inside the property line. We would be happy to construct the portion of the wall, etc. So and finally the letter was from her attorney. She's unwilling to allow any work to be done on her property,
but
period.
You at some point, what my point of the question is that at some point you offered to do this without needing an easement, without asking for an easement. You offered to do it anyway.
Correct.
So
the easement was for purposes of providing the landscaping and maintaining it if they needed that, if they wanted that. But yeah.
So I mean, are you offering it without an easement?
They were.
Well, now
were
it's
you?
too late.
Yeah. Now it's too late, but they were offering it. That's what I want to clarify.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Other questions?
No more questions.
Okay, Chris.
With all due respect, I think you're not hearing from me as the owner. It's my property. It's not his property, the architect, or her property, the Habitat for Humanity. The property we're talking about is my property.
Understand.
There was a 6-foot fence there before.
Okay.
There were 3 kinds of fences. There was a wood fence, there was a chain link fence, and there was a chicken wire fence. The man who had the house there, his house burned down. Eventually, the Habitat for Humanity built their project
I think we
there.
understand.
When they've lowered the grade, now all of a sudden I'm deprived the right to have a 6-foot fence?
Right.
Because the city's allowed them to lower the grade?
I think we
and now
understand
I
the
don't
point.
get that? That's
We
ridiculous.
understand the point.
Can I, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask the same question to Terry. Did they offer to do the work on the landscaping without requiring the easement, just for the better of the properties, of both properties? Did they offer to do the work?
They offered a landscaping plan on my property, and they asked me to sign this easement.
Did they say that they had to have the easement signed in order to do the work?
They gave me an easement from the attorney's office, and I went out in my car and read it, and I said, it's over.
You didn't
to have access
have any
to the
interest.
property, to have access to the property to do landscaping. When we came to this meeting here, not today, but earlier, they wanted 2 dead trees removed on my property and one that was dying. And I stood up and said, I'm happy to pay for the 2 dead trees to be removed and the one that's straddling the property line that's dying. When you were earlier talking about vegetation, no vegetation was removed. I got an enforcement letter saying that the slope on the front where the root ball is now exposed because of the Habitat's property. The enforcement letter said I need to slope back that incline 1-to-1, which it always was historically, but the root ball is really unruly as it was next door. No vegetation was removed. There's ivy on the front on that incline, but along this property line, this whole 12-foot area, All the vegetation is still there, the bougainvillea, all the plants that have blue flowers. Only 3 trees have been removed. 2 were dead and 1 was dying, which they wanted me to remove.
Okay.
And I did.
Okay, that answers my question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Another quick question regarding the retaining walls. You said CMU to match.
Right.
Is that basically exposed
Exactly.
block, no stucco or anything like that? Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
self-finishing. It's kind of a brownish.
It's not a split face, though. It's
Yeah,
just
no.
smooth. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
It's a speed block, so it doesn't have the
All right,
joints.
back
in
to the
between.
board for comments. Paul?
I mean, I hear what your client is saying, Terry,
Correct.
about wanting a fence that's 6 feet tall. And from the design review perspective, looking at the built environment, I can't support that. So the modification along the property line for a fence, for that wooden fence, is something that I can't support. What I would suggest is you just landscape it to provide your necessary screening that you need. So that's all I can say on that element. Along San Pasquale, the 4 feet, that block wall, there's no question whatsoever. The rest of the property that you're doing, replacing retaining walls, I think that's fine. The other comment is, if this grade did get lowered because it was higher and it got brought down to a 1-to-1, that really makes this
You
look
can see
really
here.
funky.
This is like, this is
Yeah.
behind the wall, and then this is further out, like along their wall, when you're looking from her property. So this is the way it got cut back.
So I don't have the Habitat for Humanity wall was built because of the existing site conditions.
Correct.
The site conditions on your client's side have since been changed to a 1-to-1 slope, which is more stable, makes the wall look funny, so maybe they can find it within their budget to one afternoon saw cut the top of this thing and lower the wall on their own. But we can't make that a requirement of them because their wall has a permit. It just looks funny and it's out of place, but it is what it is. So going back to it, the landscape plan that your client will be providing for this 1-to-1 slope, it'd be nice if there could be some vines or something growing to help hide, screen this kind of thing, as well as whatever type of bushes you want to grow along the guardrail to provide the screening that she's looking for. But I can't support a wooden fence. Aesthetically, I think it's not appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Dawn?
I can support the retaining wall, the 4 foot. I can't, unfortunately, support the fence either, even though I totally understand the property owner wanting privacy, and I think that it should be done with landscaping the way it used to be, and that would be the appropriate solution, in my opinion, than adding a fence. I think that there's enough land between the existing apartment building and the Habitat property to provide privacy for your client in the way of landscaping,
Right.
without adding a secondary fence. And then the biggest thing, in my opinion, is this problem that's been created with this grade issue. And I don't know whose problem it is. I totally hear Paul that Habitat built it because the grade wasn't altered, and the grade got altered. And I see part of it is why was the caisson built so high when the grade could never been as high as just that? So why is the caisson sticking up where it never could have been retaining any dirt anyway? That's a question that I'm not going to give Deddy a chance to answer because we're out of time. But it should have never been built that high anyway. So that was one problem. The second problem is then the grade got lowered by your client. So now we have a problem. We have a situation that we didn't create. So I disagree with Paul that it is what it is. I think something should be done, and I don't know who should do it.
Mr.
Yeah, go ahead, Daddy.
Just interject.
Very
In
Really
an
quick.
offer of neighborliness, I think that Habitat would, they don't like the look of that wall now any more than anybody else does. So we will certainly investigate the possibility of cutting that concrete down now that we know what the permanent grade, and lower it and make it an attractive something. So
Okay,
but to
good.
mention
Thank
that.
you.
Thanks.
So those are my comments.
I agree with both my colleagues here. I don't think the fence is appropriate. If it were me and I were that concerned, I would screen with landscaping, even a vine on that on the black fence would do the trick, I think. So that's I will agree with my fellow board members on this one.
Okay, Chris. Tony, by right, the property owner has the right to build a fence on the property line to what height right now without a modification? 48 inches or what is the
Well,
height?
its height combined with the retaining wall couldn't exceed 8 feet.
And
So basically, the height of the wrought iron.
height of the wrought iron. Okay, I just did point by point here. The 4-foot wall to the street front here, there's no problem with that. I think that you guys could go ahead and do. That's fine. I have no problem with replacing all the ties along the street sidewalk. I think first off, this is a very unfortunate situation between the two parties, and I think that in one sense, I think it's unfair to Ms. Trevelyan, because I think that half of this situation was created by the Habitat for Humanity's taking down of the earth level to build their project. I mean, I think it's a great project. I think that I totally support Habitat for doing all that they can to get housing, but the problem of the property line, is exacerbated by the fact that you did that, and so, I mean, because it's in a sense, you're now denying the other property owner the right that everybody else has to be able to build a 6-foot fence on their property line, and I think that that's unfortunate. So I would not support the 6-foot fence, even though I find that it's a little bit unfair, unfortunate. I think that a landscape screening would be more appropriate, just like my fellow board members. And I think that this is an unfortunate situation between the two parties, and I just wish it could be worked out a little bit better. I don't want in any way to see that the environmental area or the aesthetic area from Habitat for Humanity be diminished. I mean, I would hate to see a fence right up on the property line, but I think it comes part and parcel of the design that you have has created half of the situation. So, anyway, that's it. Open for a motion. We can approve the two. I think everybody.
Well, it would just be forwarded to the staff hearing officer regarding the modifications with your aesthetic input.
Mr. Chair,
I think we're almost all in agreement.
I'll float a motion, and then this is an indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer with the following points. Number one is the ABR does not have a problem with the low retaining walls that are being placed along the sidewalks at San Andreas Street and Coda Street. Two, ABR, is that right?
San Pasquale and Coda. Correct.
Not San Andreas.
Oh, San Pasquale, I'm sorry. Number two is ABR finds it appropriate to build the 48-inch high CMU wall that closes the gap between the existing wall and the adjacent parcels. 40-inch wide, 48-inch high.
4 foot 8 inch high.
4 foot 8 inch high.
Matching the existing height, the ABR finds that to be an appropriate modification to complete the retaining wall along that edge. ABR cannot support an overheight fence along the property line. And ABR encourages the applicant to use planting as a form of screening for privacy. And ABR looks forward to the applicant returning with a landscape plan addressing areas that have been disturbed.
Thank you very much for your time.
I'll second the motion.
Second, under discussion, anything? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
The fence wasn't imperative. It was just something that
Okay.
was desired. And
Thanks very much.
And
with that brings us to the conclusion of tonight's agenda.